Chapter 2553. Saint Ancestor Sha Xian's bead was as big as a mountain. It shot out beams of blood-red light that were extremely powerful. Xian Yanqing gathered countless lotus sword qi to fight against Saint Ancestor Sha Xian. However, Xian Yanqing was no match for Saint Ancestor Sha Xian. The lotus sword qi was defeated and a beam of blood-red light almost hit Xian Yanqing. She quickly retreated. "Who are you? You're not from this world." Saint Ancestor Sha Xian stared at Xian Yanqing. His blood-red eyes were filled with shock. As soon as he attacked, he could feel that Xian Yanqing's cultivation technique and the power that he controlled were not from this world. "You don't have the right to know who I am," Xian Yanqing said coldly. "No matter who you are, no one in this world will know if I kill you." "Kill!" Saint Ancestor Sha Xian shouted. The blood-red light on his body became even more intense. The blood-red light entered the blood-red bead, causing it to vibrate violently. Roar! Roar! Suddenly, a furious roar came from the blood-red bead. Following which, a huge evil demon crawled out from the blood-red bead. This evil demon was covered in blood-red scales. It had a wide mouth with sharp fangs and was filled with murderous intent. Behind his back was a pair of blood-red wings. When they spread out, they covered the entire sky. "Kill!" The evil demon roared and charged toward Xian Yanqing. "You're just an evil demon from the abyss." "Humph! You're just an insignificant evil demon," Xian Yanqing said coldly. Beams of cold sword light appeared around her body and shot toward the blood-red evil demon. Roar! The evil demon roared and flapped its wings. A gust of wind swept toward Xian Yanqing. On the other side, Saint Ancestor Sha Xian also made his move. A blood-red sword light formed and slashed toward Xian Yanqing. Facing the attacks from both sides, Xian Yanqing was at a disadvantage. Her sword light was quickly defeated. Bam! Saint Ancestor Sha Xian's blood-red sword light slashed toward Xian Yanqing. Although Xian Yanqing formed a black lotus in time to protect herself, she was still sent flying. Her body trembled and blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. "Ancestral Gragon, you have no hope. If you don't become a martial god, all your efforts will be in vain." In the dark space, he and Ancestral Dragon were locked in a fierce battle. It would be difficult to determine the outcome in a short period of time. Ancestral Dragon did not look pleased. He did not say a word. He continued Sha Xian's attacks. As for the hell-suppressing steel, it was currently locked in battle with the heaven-crushing army because it had been severely damaged. "I don't care if you die or not, you will die, I will die. Sacred Ancestor Starkiller laughed heartily and controlled the blood-red fiend to attack Xian Yanqing. But at this moment, the void split open, and a milky white sword light slashed towards the demon. The sword light was filled with sacred light. Its power was shocking. The evil demon was caught off guard and was hit by the sword light. One of its wings was severed. The evil demon screamed. The place where its wings were severed kept emitting sizzling sounds. It seemed like the sword light was effective against it. Sacred light? Damn it, what's going on? Saint Ancestor Sha Xian was furious. A weak evil demon. If it was in the past, I would have turned him into ashes with a puff of my breath. A cold, arrogant voice was heard. Then, a figure appeared in the sky. It was a woman in a white dress. She looked exactly like Xian Yanqing. "Xian Yanjuan. You, Saint Ancestor Sha Xian looked at Xian Yanjuan and Xian Yanqing. His eyes were filled with astonishment. "I didn't expect your cultivation to rise to the half-martial god realm so quickly after devouring the memories of your past life. I'm surprised." Xian Yanjuan didn't look at Saint Ancestor Sha Xian. Instead, she looked at Xian Yinqing and transmitted her voice. I won't be left behind by you. I won't let you do it alone. Xian Yinqing replied. Is that so? You're pretty confident. However, let's deal with this guy first. Xian Yinjuan chuckled. Her body emitted a white sacred light. She looked like a goddess descending to the world, pure and holy. Kill, kill. I don't care how many of you come. All of you must die. Saint Ancestor Sha Xian roared. He controlled the evil demon and himself to attack Xian Yinqing and Xian Yinjuan. Slash. Xian Yinjuan pressed her hand forward. Countless white lotuses appeared in the sky. They turned into sword qi and slashed at Saint Ancestor Sha Xian. Her cultivation was also in the half-martial god realm. Her battle strength was no weaker than Xian Yinqing's. Moreover, her attacking style was very similar to Xian Yinqing's. When Xian Yinjuan attacked, Xian Yinqing attacked as well. The two of them joined forces to fight Saint Ancestor Sha Xian. Boom! 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 The battle reached a boiling point. Saint Ancestor Sha Xian was blocked by Xian Yinqing and Xian Yinjuan. For a moment, both sides were evenly matched. They blocked it. Countless people on the battlefield were shocked when they saw this scene. However, both sides had different thoughts. The evil god tribe was shocked. They found it hard to accept. On the other hand, the heaven world was ecstatic. Ha ha ha, I didn't expect that there would be such an expert in the heaven world. Good, good. Emperor Rebellious laughed. The number one king's face was ugly. Xian Yinqing and Xian Yinjuan's battle strength was too strong. They were far stronger than ordinary half-martial gods. The two of them joined forces to block Saint Ancestor Sha Xian's attack. Such strength was too terrifying. In the heaven world, they could be said to be the strongest experts other than Ancestor Gragon. However, they had never heard of them before. However, it did not matter. As long as they were from the heaven world, it would be fine. Ha ha ha, Mo-ku, it seems like things are out of your control. Ancestor Gragon laughed. This was a pleasant surprise. Originally, he had placed all his hopes on Lu Ming. He did not expect that there would be two such experts in the heaven world. As long as they could hold Saint Ancestor Sha Xian back and wait for Lu Ming to break through, they would have a great chance of winning. The evil god realm and the heaven world had been at war for countless years. Damn it, how is this possible? The foreign tribe's divine ancestor roared. He was extremely shocked. How could there be two such experts in the heaven world? They looked like sisters, but their battle strength was so strong. There was no news about them before. It was as if they had appeared out of nowhere. Lu Ming's wife, it's that Lu Ming again. The foreign tribe's divine ancestor was furious. The battle on the battlefield entered a stalemate. The difference in strength between the two sides was not great. The battle was fierce, and there were people dying at every moment. In the ultimate ruins battlefield, the Titan Longhorn Bull and the foreign tribe's kings were fighting. It was difficult to determine the victor. Suppress, I'll suppress. Suppress him for me. Dandan transformed into his true form. He was huge and filled with runes. His battle strength was shocking. He was fighting two foreign tribes' kings alone and was not at a disadvantage. In fact, he even had the upper hand. That old turtle, I didn't expect him to be so strong after breaking through to the half-martial god realm. Not far away, the Titan Longhorn Bull thought unhappily. In the Dragon Emperor Peak, Lu Ming had been cultivating. Boom! Suddenly, a shocking aura surged from Lu Ming's body. His eyes opened. Chapter 2554. Lu Ming's aura soared into the sky like a spear that was about to pierce through heaven and earth. Break for me! Lu Ming shouted as his body emitted a dazzling purple-gold light. He wanted to break through the shackles and become a heavenly emperor. However, just as Lu Ming unleashed his aura, all around him, within a radius of 1,000,000 miles, a colorful glow suddenly appeared. The light enveloped Lu Ming, forming a terrifying pressure that pressed down on Lu Ming, restraining Lu Ming. This was the power of the heavenly Tao. The heavenly Tao wanted to stop Lu Ming from breaking through. The Tao of Sovereign was too terrifying. It shouldn't have appeared in places like the heavenly domain or the evil god realm. Because once the Tao of Sovereign entered the heavenly emperor realm, one would be able to dominate heaven and earth, even the heavenly Tao. This was not allowed by the heavenly Tao. It wanted to stop it. The terrifying pressure continued to press down on Lu Ming, even forming invisible chains that wrapped around Lu Ming's body. Break, break! Lu Ming shouted as he exerted all his strength and struggled with all his might. Bam! 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 The invisible chains on Lu Ming's body continued to shatter. However, after the chains shattered, even more chains appeared. Buzz! Lu Ming's muscles and bones began to vibrate rapidly. The frequency of vibrations exceeded 50 billion times per second. Such violent vibrations produced a terrifying power that shattered the invisible chains that wrapped around his body. At the same time, Lu Ming formed a long spear in his hand with the power of the sovereign. Buzz! The long spear vibrated and swept in all directions. Lu Ming wanted to break through the shackles of the heavenly Tao. Whoosh! 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 Rays of spear light soared into the sky and swept in all directions. From afar, one could only see countless spear lights piercing holes in heaven and earth. It's starting to break through. In the distant dark void, the ancestral Gragon sensed it immediately and revealed a look of joy. At the same time, the foreign race's divine ancestor also sensed it, and his face darkened. It's not that easy to break through the Tao of Sovereign in the heavenly domain. The heavenly Tao doesn't allow it. The foreign race's divine ancestor said coldly. Really? At the same time, he stretched out a dragon claw to meet the outsider sacred ancestor's attack. On the Dragon Emperor peak, Lu Ming's spear glow grew stronger and stronger. As he executed the battle character formula, the power of each of his moves was enhanced. Each of his moves was extremely terrifying, constantly blasting away the power of the heavenly Tao. It's not enough, it's still not enough. I have to trigger double combat power. Lu Ming's mind raced. With his current strength, it was impossible for him to completely break through the shackles of the heavenly Tao. If that was the case, he would not be able to truly break through. Lu Ming kept unleashing the battle formula, hoping to trigger the double combat power. The probability of Lu Ming triggering the double combat strength effect was about 1 in 10. After triggering it about 8 or 9 times, suddenly, Lu Ming felt boundless battle intent erupt from his body. This battle intent transformed into power, greatly increasing Lu Ming's strength. The battle character formula had been successfully activated. Double combat power. Wang! The long spear in Lu Ming's hand swept out, and the power of the heavenly Tao crumbled continuously. Whoosh! Whoosh! Then, Lu Ming's long spear shook, and countless spear rays shot out, piercing through the void and breaking the power of the heavenly Tao. Boom! Lu Ming's aura grew stronger. How is this possible? In the dark void, the foreign tribe's divine ancestor widened his eyes in disbelief. Lu Ming was about to break through the shackles of the heavenly Tao. Ha ha ha! The ancestral dragon laughed maniacally. Xiaofan, quickly deal with those 2 bitches. Go and kill Lu Ming. Something's wrong. The foreign tribe's divine ancestor hurriedly sent a message to the divine ancestor. At this moment, the divine ancestor was still locked in a fierce battle with Xie Nianqing and Xie Nianjuan. Hearing the Divine Ancestor's message, a vicious look flashed across the Divine Ancestor's eyes. Those two bitches dare to block me? Die! Die! The Divine Ancestor roared, and a terrifying aura erupted from his body. Boundless blood-red light spread out, burning fiercely. Burn your divine power. The ancestral dragon was enraged. The Divine Ancestor had yet to recover from his injuries as he did not have enough time. He might be able to recover in a few hundred years or even 1,000 years. Therefore, the Divine Ancestor's strength had barely reached the martial god realm. However, the Divine Ancestor had decided to burn his divine power regardless of the consequences. As a result, his strength was able to reach his peak within a short period of time. The Divine Ancestor's strength skyrocketed as he burned his divine power. He executed 2 consecutive slashes with shocking might. Xian Yinqing and Xian Yinjuan were startled. They immediately set up defenses in front of them. However, their defenses were unable to resist the Divine Ancestor's attack. They were shattered instantly. Their figures shuddered violently as they were sent flying over 10,000 li away. Blood poured out from their mouths as their figures shuddered. You two bitches, trying to stop me? Die! The Divine Ancestor withdrew the demon. The blood-red glow formed a sword as he slashed at Xian Yinqing and Xian Yinjuan. Xian Yinqing and Xian Yinjuan defended themselves with all their might. They were not aiming for success, but they were hoping to avoid making any mistakes. However, the Divine Ancestor who had recovered to his peak was indeed powerful. He was on par with the ancestral dragon and the Divine Ancestor of the foreign tribes. Xian Yinqing and Xian Yinjuan were only half-gods after all. They were no match for the Divine Ancestor at his peak. After a few exchanges, they were sent flying again. The hearts of the people from the heaven realm sank. At this rate, the situation was not looking good. He is burning his divine power. He won't be able to hold on for long. As long as we can hold him off for a while, we will have a chance of winning. Xian Yinqing, do you still remember the dark sacred light technique? Xian Yinjuan transmitted his voice to Xian Yinqing. Yes. Xian Yinqing nodded. Alright, let's use the dark sacred light technique to set up a dark sacred light cage to hold him off for a while. Xian Yinjuan said. Xian Yinqing nodded. The two of them made their moves at the same time. Instead of retreating, they charged toward the Divine Ancestor. The moment they charged out, their bodies emitted a brilliant glow. The difference was that Xian Yinqing's body was covered in a boundless dark glow. Her body seemed to have turned into a black hole. It was pitch black, and no one could see her figure. On the other hand, Xian Yinjuan's body was covered in a boundless white glow. It was even more dazzling than the sun in the sky. Many people could not open their eyes. Dark sacred light technique. Two crisp voices could be heard at the same time. Immediately, boundless black and white glows shrouded the Divine Ancestor. The speed of the glows was unbelievably fast. They immediately shrouded the Divine Ancestor. Following this, the black and white glows intertwined with each other like threads, forming a cage. This was the dark sacred light cage. It was a terrifying secret technique that required the combined efforts of Xian Yinqing and Xian Yinjuan. Break it! Divine Ancestor Xiaofan roared. A blood-red sword light cut through the void and slashed at the dark sacred light cage. Boom! There was an earth-shattering explosion. However, Saint Ancestor Xiaofan's sword did not break the dark sacred light cage. Instead, it only caused the dark sacred light cage to shake violently. Chapter 2555 X to the power of 8-1 Z 0 M Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Divine Ancestor Xiaofan was enraged by the fact that his sword had failed to break the cage. Although burning his divine power in this manner was extremely taxing on him and would leave behind terrible after-effects, he could not care less about that now. As long as he could flatten the celestial world and successfully split open the sky, the celestial beings would definitely bestow him treasures. His injuries and after-effects were nothing to him. He held the blood-red sword in his hand and slashed at the dark holy light cage. Boom! Boom! The dark holy light cage shook violently. Every time Divine Ancestor Sha Xian's sword slashed at it, Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjuan would tremble and turn pale. Clearly, Divine Ancestor Sha Xian's attacks were also a great burden to them. However, they gritted their teeth and persevered. Now, it was time to see who could hold on. Whoever could hold on would be the winner. Break! 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 Divine Ancestor Sha Xian attacked wildly. In an instant, he could release hundreds of swords. Both sides were in a stalemate. Lu Ming, on the other hand, was progressing smoothly. He had activated double combat strength, and his combat strength skyrocketed. He continued to attack the Heavenly Tao's power, shattering the shackles of the Heavenly Tao. Finally, the long spear spun and swept across the sky, completely blasting the Heavenly Tao's power away. Boom! At this moment, Lu Ming's aura exploded and reached its peak. Break! Lu Ming roared. His long hair fluttered in the wind. Then, there was a loud explosion in his body. He had broken through a bottleneck. His cultivation level had risen to a whole new level. That was the Heavenly Emperor realm. At this moment, Lu Ming seemed to be in control of everything. The entire celestial world was under his control. He could also sense the battle in the Ultimate Ruins battlefield and Two-World City. Has the final battle begun? Lu Ming's eyes turned cold. Previously, he had been wholeheartedly cultivating and trying to break through to the next realm without any distractions. Who would have thought that the final battle would have already broken out? Shaoqing, Mid-Autumn Moon, Xiang, Lu Ming sensed that Xian Yanqing, Xiang, and the others were fine. Lu Ming felt relieved. Following this, Lu Ming waved his hand, and countless God stones flew out. Although Lu Ming had broken through, his strength hadn't caught up. He had to absorb a large amount of energy and convert it into world energy and sovereign power. Bam bam bam. Countless godly stones exploded into pieces. Lu Ming couldn't care less about wasting resources now. What he wanted was to stabilize his cultivation base as soon as possible so that he could participate in the battle. Lu Ming absorbed the endless divine aura into his body and transformed it into the power of the world and the power of the Master. Lu Ming's small world began to expand wildly. Not enough, far from enough. Speed up, Lu Ming growled and finally took out all the God stones on him. Piles of God stones exploded and were absorbed by Lu Ming. The energy Lu Ming needed to break through to the Heavenly Emperor realm was too shocking. The main thing was that a portion of the energy would be converted into sovereign power, which was the most energy-consuming. Lu Ming still had more than 10,000 Chaos Stones left. However, 10,000 Chaos Stones were a drop in the bucket for Lu Ming now. Therefore, Lu Ming had already given them to Lu Xiang, Ouyang Moli, Bubbles, and the others. Lu Ming was now completely using God stones to cultivate. Fortunately, he had obtained a large number of God stones in the Yellow Spring world. Time continued to pass. Lu Ming's aura became stronger and more shocking. Of course, the number of God stones he devoured was also increasing. The battle in the Two-World City had also reached its climax. Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjuan tried their best to stop Divine Ancestor Sha Xian, but under Divine Ancestor Sha Xian's frenzied attacks, their faces turned pale and blood flowed from the corners of their mouths. Sha Xian, it's too late. End this quickly. The other tribe Divine Ancestor sent a message to Divine Ancestor Sha Xian anxiously. He realized that Lu Ming was about to break through. Damn bitches, I will make sure you never reincarnate. Explode, explode. Divine Ancestor Sha Xian roared and took out the blood-red bead. Endless blood-red light flowed from his body into the bead. Wang! The blood-red bead vibrated violently and emitted a dazzling blood-red light. Not good. Xian Yanqing and Xian Yinjuan's faces changed drastically. Boom! Then, the blood-colored bead exploded with a loud bang. This was a divine weapon that surpassed a Heaven Dao weapon. When it exploded, its power was unimaginable. Endless destructive power swept out in all directions and slammed into the dark holy light cage. In an instant, the dark holy light cage exploded. Xian Yanqing and Xian Yinjuan's bodies were swept away by the force and were sent flying. They spat out mouthfuls of blood and were severely injured. Die! Divine Ancestor Sha Xian's eyes turned red as he charged toward Xian Yanqing with boundless killing intent. Whoosh! His terrifyingly withered hand grabbed at Xian Yanqing. Xian Yanqing was severely injured and could not dodge this attack. If he was hit, he would definitely die. At this critical moment, the space in front of Xian Yanqing suddenly split open. A long spear flew out and pierced toward Divine Ancestor Sha Xian's hand. Dong! The long spear pierced Divine Ancestor Sha Xian's hand. There was a loud explosion and the long spear was sent flying. However, Divine Ancestor Sha Xian was also pushed back. There was a hole in his hand and blood-red light was wriggling inside. His eyes were filled with astonishment. It should be known that he was now in the state of burning his divine power, and his combat strength had recovered to its peak. However, the spear just now had pierced his palm. He looked forward with his blood-red eyes. The space in front of him split open. A tall and slender young man in a black robe appeared behind Xian Yanqing. He grabbed Xian Yanqing's slender waist and pulled Xian Yanqing into his arms. This young man was none other than Lu Ming. He had refined 90% of the divine stones in his body and finally stabilized his cultivation at the Heavenly Emperor realm. Coincidentally, Divine Ancestor Sha Xian had destroyed Xian Yanqing and Xian Yinjuan's dark sacred light cage. He did not hesitate to rush over. With his current cultivation, he could reach Two World City from Dragon Emperor Peak in an instant. Shao Qing, are you alright? Lu Ming asked with concern. Lu Ming, you're finally here. Xian Yanqing smiled. Shao Qing, take this fruit of life. A fruit of life appeared in Lu Ming's hand and he gave it to Xian Yanqing. Xian Yanqing took it and swallowed it. His body shone brightly. Fruit of life, you still have. Seeing Lu Ming take out the fruit of life, Divine Ancestor Sha Xian's eyes were filled with greed. Do you want it? I have plenty of it. Lu Ming looked at Divine Ancestor Sha Xian and waved his hand. 9 fruits of life appeared in his hand. One of them flew towards Xian Yinjuan. Xian Yinjuan did not hesitate. He caught the fruit of life and swallowed it. His injuries healed quickly. So many fruits of life. Divine Ancestor Sha Xian was shocked. Old Tai, set a small goal first. Remember new 8th Chinese network. Oh. Chapter 2556. X to the power of 8 1 Z 0 degrees M. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Lu Ming had taken out 9 fruits of life in one go. Including the one he had given to Xian Yanqing, he now had 10 fruits of life in total. Not only was the Sacred Ancestor Sha Xian shocked, even the Sacred Ancestor was dumbfounded. He clearly remembered that there were only 18 fruits of life on the Tree of Life. They had obtained 11, while the Heaven Realm had only obtained 7. Where did Lu Ming get so many fruits of life from? A fortunate encounter. Lu Ming must have had a fortunate encounter. The sacred ancestor yelled in jealousy. At the same time, he also realized why the Titan Longhorn Beetle, 9 Lives Demon Silkworm, and the others had achieved the half-martial god realm. It must be because of the fruits of life that the Chaos Monarch and the others had recovered from their injuries. The thought made the sacred ancestor feel like vomiting blood. He had only managed to obtain 11 fruits of life, which was only enough for him and the sacred ancestor Xiaofan. He felt extremely gloomy when he thought about how Lu Ming had managed to obtain a large number of fruits of life, which had greatly increased the strength of the heaven realm. Meanwhile, the sacred ancestor Xiaofan was shocked when he saw the fruits of life, before his eyes were filled with greed. His injuries had yet to fully recover, and he was currently burning his god force, which further worsened his injuries. If he could obtain so many fruits of life, he would be able to recover in no time. Give it to me, give me the fruits of life. The sacred ancestor Xiaofan yelled. Give it to you? Come and take it yourself. Lu Ming kept the fruits of life and held the great desolation spear in his hand. His aura grew stronger. Lu Ming, I didn't devour you. Now, I'll destroy you. The sacred ancestor Xiaofan yelled. He turned into a crimson ray and charged at Lu Ming. Bang! A brilliant purple-golden glow burst out from Lu Ming's body as he unleashed the force of the world and the force of the ruler realm in his body. Following this, he thrust his spear forward. The great desolation spear rapidly turned into a spear glow and stabbed at the sacred ancestor Xiaofan. Dong! The two of them clashed head-on, forming a terrifying shockwave that rushed out in all directions. That part of the void completely exploded. The blood light shattered and Saint Ancestor Xiaofan retreated. Lu Ming also retracted his spear. What? In a head-on battle, Lu Ming blocked Xiaofan's attack. Oh my god, what did I just see? Could Lu Ming have become a god? How could this be? At this moment, regardless of whether it was the heaven realm or the evil god race, everyone was deeply astonished and stunned. Lu Ming was able to fight a martial god head-on. This was too shocking. The difference was that after the evil god tribe was astonished, they were filled with endless fear. As for the heaven realm, after the shock, they were filled with endless ecstasy. Ha ha ha, Mo-ku, this time around, your evil god tribe will be annihilated. Ancestral Gragon laughed loudly, feeling extremely carefree. How is this possible? This is impossible. The outsider sacred ancestor's heart was in turmoil. He found it hard to accept. He had planned and worked hard for countless years, but in the end, this was the outcome that he could not accept. If Lu Ming could fight Saint Ancestor Xiaofan, it would be too disadvantageous for them. After all, the heaven realm still had Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjuan. Xiaofan, is this all you've got? Today, the person that will be annihilated is you. Lu Ming swung his spear and took a step forward. His figure turned into a ray of light as he charged toward Saint Ancestor Xiaofan. Blood Sea Sword Art. Saint Ancestor Xiaofan roared as a blood sea appeared behind him. Countless blood-red sword rays flew out from the blood sea and slashed at Lu Ming. Ruler. Lu Ming executed the ruler's force to dominate the world. As the ruler's force was applied to the blood-red sword rays, the direction of the sword rays changed slightly. They did not manage to hit Lu Ming at all. Instead, they flew past Lu Ming. In the blink of an eye, Lu Ming closed in on Saint Ancestor Xiaofan and swung his spear. The long spear ray swept across the blood sea. The blood sea collapsed as Saint Ancestor Xiaofan retreated hastily. Swoosh! Swoosh! The great barren spear continued to pierce through the void. Lu Ming and Saint Ancestor Xiaofan charged into the dark void. Now that Lu Ming had broken through to the Heavenly Emperor realm, his battle strength had increased tremendously. Combining all aspects, he was comparable to a martial god. He was not any weaker than the ancestral dragon or the other tribe's divine ancestors when they were at their peak. This was under the circumstance that Lu Ming had not triggered the double combat ability. Boom! Boom! Lu Ming and Saint Ancestor Sha Xian charged into the dark void. They clashed a few times in the dark void, causing the dark void to churn. After Lu Ming broke through to the Heavenly Emperor realm, the double combat power effect of the battle character incantation had ended. Therefore, Lu Ming was only in an ordinary state now, not a state with double combat power. Lu Ming circulated the Sovereign Dao to the maximum. The power of the Sovereign and the Sovereign Dao in his body roared. Lu Ming's Sovereign Dao occupied more than half of his body. This was the key to Lu Ming's ability to fight against a martial god. In the future, as Lu Ming's cultivation base increased, the power of the Sovereign Dao would also increase. Lu Ming estimated that when he reached the peak of the Heavenly Emperor realm, all the power of the Sovereign Dao in his body would be converted into the power of the Sovereign Dao. At the same time, Lu Ming executed the battle character art. Although it did not trigger the double combat strength, Lu Ming's every move was shockingly powerful with the help of the battle character art. He was evenly matched with Saint Ancestor Sha Xian, who was in his peak state. In fact, Lu Ming was slightly stronger than Sha Xian. After Lu Ming and Saint Ancestor Sha Xian fought their way into the dark void, Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjuan's injuries were more or less healed with the help of the Fruit of Life. Xian Yanqing's eyes were cold as he swept his gaze across the battlefield. Then, numerous black lotuses appeared around him. They turned into streaks of sword chi and flew toward the giant of the Heaven-Crushing Legion. The giant of the Heaven-Crushing Legion was still engaged in an intense battle with the prison-suppressing steel. However, the prison-suppressing steel had a trace of the prison-suppressing steel's power. After such a long battle, it was almost unable to hold on any longer. At this moment, Xian Yanqing made his move. It was really the right time. Roar! The giant of the Heaven-Crushing Legion stretched out a large hand and slammed it toward Xian Yanqing's sword chi. Bang! Bang! The sound of collisions rang out. The giant of the Heaven-Crushing Legion trembled violently as it retreated continuously. The ground under its feet cracked continuously. In a moment of carelessness, it trampled a few hundred evil god tribe members who were unable to retreat in time to death. Xian Yanqing was able to exchange blows with Saint Elder Sha Xian, who possessed the battle prowess of a martial god. His strength was above that of the Heaven-Crushing Legion. Slash! Xian Yanqing shouted coldly. He waved his small hand, and boundless sword light gathered to form a gigantic black sword chi. This sword chi once again slashed toward the giant of the Heaven-Crushing Legion. The giant of the Heaven-Crushing Legion raised its fist to block this attack. However, this time, the giant's fist was directly sliced into two by the sword light. A large number of Heaven-Crushing Legion elites were caught in the fist. Their bodies exploded, and they perished. In an instant, several hundred Heaven-Crushing Legion elites were killed, including a dozen or so heavenly emperors. The giant of the Heaven-Crushing Legion retreated continuously. However, at this moment, a milky white sword light slashed down from the heavens. Xian Yanjuan had made his move. Pooh! The head of the giant of the Heaven-Crushing Legion was directly severed. Another few hundred Heaven-Crushing Legion elites perished. In this way, the giant of the Heaven-Crushing Legion was directly scattered. The Great Formation had been broken. Old Tai, set a small goal first. Remember new 8th Chinese network. Chapter 2557. X to the power of 8 1 Z 0 degrees M. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Once the Heaven-Crushing Army's formation was broken, it was difficult for them to gather their power and weave it together. Their battle prowess was instantly greatly reduced. Nearly 100,000 people frantically retreated, their hearts filled with shock. The heaven-crushing army's formation had always been invincible. Apart from the martial god, they didn't fear anyone else. However, facing Xianyanqing and Xianyanjuan, they were defeated in just a few moves. Their formation was directly destroyed. Don't panic. Gather and set up the formation. The commander of the heaven-crushing army roared. This person was a demigod, and he wanted to reassemble the heaven-crushing army and form a formation to resist Xianyanqing and the others. However, just as he finished speaking, 5 black lotuses appeared around him out of thin air. Whoosh! 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 The lotuses spun, and their petals transformed into sharp sword qi that shot toward him. The commander's expression changed, and he waved the battle axe in his hand to block the attack. After a series of collisions, the heaven-shattering army commander's body shook violently. Cracks appeared on the heavenly Dao tool battle axe in his hand, and his chest had been pierced through by a beam of sword qi. His chest was pierced through from front to back. He was severely injured, and he spat out large mouthfuls of blood. His eyes were filled with shock. How could he be so strong? He was extremely terrified. No matter what, he was still a demigod, and he was known as an invincible elite. However, he had only exchanged one move with Xianyanqing, and he had already been severely injured. Whoosh! In the next instant, Xianyanqing's figure suddenly appeared beside him. Oh no! The commander of the heaven-crushing army was shocked, and he quickly retreated. However, it was already too late. A sword light flashed, and his head flew high into the air. In a battle of the same level, he didn't have the slightest ability to resist Xianyanqing. Kill! Xianyanqing's expression was cold and merciless. With a wave of his hand, boundless sword qi rushed toward the heaven-crushing army. The heaven-crushing army originally had 100,000 elites, 5,000 heavenly emperors, and 95,000 heavenly emperors. However, they couldn't even withstand a single blow from Xianyanqing. Wherever the sword qi passed, the heaven-crushing legion's elites were pierced and killed. Whether it was a heavenly emperor or a great emperor, they were all the same. Even a peak heavenly emperor would find it difficult to block Xianyanqing's attack. At the same time, Xianyanjuan also made his move. His attack style was very similar to Xianyanqing's. Wherever his milky white sword light passed, large swathes of heaven-crushing army elites were killed. This was a completely one-sided slaughter. The elites of the heaven-crushing legion were being harvested like wheat. No, damn it, no. As for the number 1 king of the outsiders, the old kings felt as if their hearts were about to bleed. The heaven-crushing legion was the strongest legion of the evil god tribe. So many elites had died just like that. At the same time, they were extremely terrified. Xianyanqing and Xianyanjuan were practically unstoppable. After they finished killing the heaven-crushing army, wouldn't it be their turn? They had seen how demigods were unable to resist Xianyanqing at all and were almost instantly killed. If it were them, they wouldn't be too far behind. Divine Ancestor, what should we do? The number 1 king roared. His voice traveled far and wide through the dark void toward the Divine Ancestor. Retreat, form a formation, and defend with all your might. The Divine Ancestor said. At this moment, the Divine Ancestor was also extremely angry. He had never imagined that the battle would turn out like this. Before the battle, he had been very confident. On the surface, the evil god tribe had the upper hand in terms of low-level, mid-level, and high-level battle prowess. Moreover, he and the Divine Ancestor Xiaofan were martial gods. As long as they made a move, the battle would definitely be one-sided. They would definitely be able to flatten the heaven realm. However, after the battle, everything was beyond his expectations. At the beginning, the Titan Longhorn Beetle, 9 Lives Demonic Silkworm, World Divine Turtle, and the others appeared one after another. They had all broken through to the demigod realm and delayed a portion of the evil god tribe's forces. Then, the rebellious emperor and the others actually recovered from their injuries. What was even more unexpected was that Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjuan seemed to have appeared out of nowhere and held the divine ancestor Sha Xian back until Lu Ming had a breakthrough. Lu Ming, it's all because of Lu Ming. The divine ancestor yelled in his heart. All of this was because of Lu Ming and Lu Ming's fruits of life, the Titan Longhorn Beetle, and the 9 lives demonic silkworm's breakthroughs. The rebellious emperor and the others also recovered because of Lu Ming's fruits of life. Xian Yanqing was even Lu Ming's wife. It was all because of Lu Ming that the battle had developed to this stage. Now, they could only defend themselves and wait for the divine ancestor Sha Xian to kill Lu Ming or defeat the ancestral Gragon. Only then would they have a chance to turn the tables. At this thought, he couldn't help but look at the place where Lu Ming and the divine ancestor Sha Xian were fighting. His eyes widened. At this moment, Lu Ming had gained the upper hand and was suppressing the divine ancestor Sha Xian. Lu Ming and the divine ancestor Sha Xian had already exchanged a few hundred blows in the dark void. Lu Ming didn't activate the battle character manual to double his battle strength. He was fighting the divine ancestor Sha Xian in his normal state. However, Lu Ming was getting stronger as the battle went on. He had just broken through and wasn't familiar with using his power. As the battle progressed, he became more familiar with the sudden increase in power. Moreover, the battle character manual was amazing. No matter what kind of attack he used, his battle strength would increase tremendously. In addition, the divine ancestor Sha Xian was burning his divine power. The longer the battle went on, the weaker he became. Therefore, Lu Ming had the upper hand. Whoosh! Whoosh! The great barren spear in Lu Ming's hand danced like a dragon. Spear lights stabbed at the divine ancestor Sha Xian. The divine ancestor Sha Xian was forced to retreat and defend himself. Puff! The divine ancestor Sha Xian's body was pierced by Lu Ming's spear light. The divine ancestor Sha Xian tried his best to recover. Blood light wriggled as he tried to heal himself. However, at this moment, his expression changed drastically. Then, his aura rapidly weakened. He hadn't recovered from his injuries and hadn't recovered to his peak state. He couldn't maintain his peak state for a long time by burning his divine power. Now that his divine power was almost depleted, his condition was deteriorating rapidly. Lu Ming wouldn't let this opportunity slip by. His eyes turned cold as he swung the great barren spear. Bam! The divine ancestor Sha Xian was sent flying. His body was almost split into 2. He spat out a few mouthfuls of blood and his aura weakened. Die! Lu Ming took a step forward and caught up with Saint Ancestor Sha Xian. The great barren spear vibrated, covered with the dazzling power of the ruler. It charged toward Saint Ancestor Sha Xian, intending to annihilate him completely. Although the divine ancestor Sha Xian retreated, he couldn't avoid the attack and was hit by Lu Ming. His body shattered into pieces and turned into a sea of blood. Refine! Lu Ming stretched out his palms and the purplish gold power of the master transformed into 2 huge palms. When they came together, the sea of blood was shrouded in their palms. Lu Ming was going to refine the divine ancestor Sha Xian with his sovereign power. No, no, Mo-ku, come and save me. The divine ancestor Sha Xian screamed in fear. He tried to break free, but he couldn't break free from the sovereign power. Lu Ming! The divine ancestor roared. His golden hair fluttered in the wind. He used all his strength to exchange a few blows with the ancestral dragon. Then, he took the opportunity to charge at Lu Ming. Old Tai, set a small target first. Remember new 8th Chinese network. Oh. Chapter 2558. x to the power of 8 carat 1 z carat 0 degrees m. Translator, Nyoibo Studio Editor. Nyoibo Studio. The foreign tribe's divine ancestor used all his strength to break free from the ancestral Gragon's obstruction and charged at Lu Ming. Boom! The divine ancestor of the foreign tribe threw a punch. A golden fist crossed the boundless void and blasted toward Lu Ming with an extremely domineering aura. Lu Ming's expression changed slightly. The great desolation spear vibrated and thrust out. As soon as the spear was thrust out, the foreign tribe's divine ancestor's fist arrived and clashed with Lu Ming's spear light. A deafening explosion resounded as the great desolation spear vibrated continuously. A terrifying force surged and forced Lu Ming to take a few steps back. Divine weapon. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. The foreign tribe's divine ancestor was wearing a pair of golden gloves. It was obvious that the gloves were divine weapons that were specially used by martial gods. They were extremely powerful. The divine ancestor Sha Xian's divine weapon had exploded, but the foreign tribe's divine ancestor still had his divine weapon. Therefore, his battle strength was slightly stronger than the divine ancestor Sha Xian when he was burning his divine force. Die! The foreign tribe's divine ancestor roared. His fists were like two golden suns as they blasted at Lu Ming. Mo, I'm your opponent. The ancestral Gragon had arrived. How could he allow the foreign tribe's divine ancestor to attack Lu Ming? He lashed out with his dragon claws and fought against the foreign tribe's divine ancestor. At the same time, a dragon horn floated above the ancestral Gragon's head. It slashed out continuously like a battle saber. It was also a divine weapon. The ancestral Gragon's battle strength was on par with the foreign tribe's divine ancestor. He could not afford to be careless. He had to fight the ancestral Gragon with all his strength. Boom! Boom! The foreign tribe's divine ancestor exchanged a few blows with the ancestral Gragon. Meanwhile, Lu Ming took the opportunity to continue refining the divine ancestor Sha Xian. The divine ancestor Sha Xian continued to unleash his attacks, trying to break free from Lu Ming's obstruction. Mo, save me, save me! Saint Ancestor Sha Xian roared. The outsider sacred ancestor's face was as cold as ice as he madly exchanged a few moves with the ancestral dragon. Gritting his teeth, he suddenly changed his stance, taking a hit from the ancestral dragon as he shot toward Lu Ming. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, the alien race's holy ancestor closed in on Lu Ming and threw hundreds of punches at him. Lu Ming brandished his great desolate spear to block. After several hundred clashes, the strength of the sacred ancestor was indeed shocking. Lu Ming had to fend off the sacred ancestor, thus, he did not have the energy to refine sacred ancestor Sha Xian. Thus, the sacred ancestor Sha Xian managed to escape. Saint Ancestor Sha Xian fled and met up with the other race's saint ancestors. Let's go back first. The outsider race's sacred ancestor said. Right now, they were at a complete disadvantage. They could only retreat first before making further plans. You want to leave? Stay. The ancestral dragon charged forward, his dragon horn like a heavenly blade that slashed down at the outsider sacred ancestor. Facing the ancestral dragon's attack, the outsider's sacred ancestor had no choice but to focus. Whoosh! Whoosh! Lu Ming brandished his long spear and charged forward. Dazzling spear lights shrouded the sacred ancestor and Saint Ancestor Sha Xian. Saint Ancestor Sha Xian's battle strength had weakened and was no longer a match for Lu Ming. He could only barely hold on with the help of the sacred ancestor. At this moment, the sacred ancestor had to face the ancestral dragon and fend off Lu Ming's attacks. He was at a disadvantage. Battle Character Art. During the battle, Lu Ming constantly activated the Battle Character Art in an attempt to double his battle strength. After exchanging dozens of blows, the sacred ancestor and Saint Ancestor Sha Xian were forced to retreat. Boom! Suddenly, Lu Ming's body exploded. The double battle strength of the battle character art was activated, and Lu Ming's battle strength skyrocketed. Whoosh! A spear light pierced towards the sacred ancestor. The sacred ancestor hurriedly raised his fist to block it. Boom! This time, the sacred ancestor was sent flying by Lu Ming. His body trembled and he spat out a mouthful of blood. This battle strength. How is this possible? The sacred ancestor exclaimed in his heart. This was unbelievable. At this point in the battle, Lu Ming was still able to unleash even more battle strength. Furthermore, it had increased tremendously, completely suppressing the sacred ancestor. Once the sacred ancestor retreated, Saint Ancestor Xiaofan was exposed. Kill! Lu Ming roared. The Great Baron spear turned into a pillar and smashed toward Saint Ancestor Xiaofan. Sacred Ancestor Xiaofan turned into a sea of blood and rolled wildly. He wanted to evade but was unable to do so. At this moment, Lu Ming had activated the battle word essence to double his combat strength. He was extremely powerful. When the Great Baron spear pressed down, the sea of blood transformed by Sacred Ancestor Xiaofan was directly split into two halves. A terrifying destructive force burst forth from the Great Desolation Spear. The sea of blood formed by Sacred Ancestor Xiaofan began to crack and shatter, turning into tiny pieces. Refine. Then, Lu Ming unleashed his sovereign power and shrouded the small pieces of the sea of blood. Then, he started to refine them. Sizzle sizzle sizzle, green smoke filled the air. The sea of blood formed by Saint Ancestor Xiaofan was being refined at an extremely fast speed. Mo-ku, save me. Save me, Saint Ancestor Xiaofan was still crying for help. Xiaofan, go in peace. Mo-ku can't save you. Ancestral Gragon said coldly and charged towards the sacred ancestor. At this moment, the sacred ancestor's face was gloomy. There was a hint of madness in his eyes. He didn't want to fight with Ancestral Gragon. Instead, he dashed towards the other side. That was the direction of Tai Ching Sky Domain. Not good. Ancestral Gragon seemed to have thought of something. His face changed drastically as he chased after the sacred ancestor. Lu Ming, go after him. Don't let Mo-ku reach Tai Ching Sky Domain. Ancestral Gragon's anxious voice could be heard. Kill. Lu Ming waved his hands. Countless spear radiances appeared in the air and charged towards the remaining sea of blood. No, Saint Ancestor Xiaofan roared. Then, countless spear radiances flew down and tore the sea of blood apart. Then, the sea of blood dissipated under the sovereign power. In an instant, Saint Ancestor Xiaofan had completely disappeared. Not a trace of him was left. This time, Saint Ancestor Xiaofan had completely died. There was no chance for him to come back to life. A martial god had been killed by Lu Ming. After killing Saint Ancestor Xiaofan, Lu Ming increased his speed to the maximum and chased after Ancestral Gragon and the sacred ancestor. All of this took a long time to describe, but it actually happened in an instant. However, the sacred ancestor had already reached Tai Ching Sky Domain and arrived at the lair of Zulong. Mo-ku, Ancestral Gragon roared in anger. He opened his mouth and spat out a destructive light beam towards the sacred ancestor. However, there was only madness in the sacred ancestor's eyes. He ignored Ancestral Gragon's attack and threw out a punch. The terrifying power shattered the space within a radius of tens of millions of miles. Through the space, one could clearly see the appearance of a small world. This small world was the lair of Zulong. The sacred ancestor's terrifying punch landed on the lair of Zulong. Like a balloon, the lair of Zulong was blown up by the sacred ancestor's punch. After the lair of Zulong was blown up, the void was suddenly filled with dazzling golden light. From afar, Lu Ming could see a huge and boundless talisman seal covering the sky. That's, Lu Ming's pupils shrank. He was very surprised. He had never thought that there would be such a huge seal behind the lair of Zulong. The heaven-suppressing seal. Ancestral Gragon, you're dreaming of sealing the sky. Today, I'll tear the seal apart and let all of you die with me. The sacred ancestor roared crazily. His whole body seemed to be burning. He turned into a divine sword and rushed towards the seal. Let's set a small target first. Remember new 8th Chinese network. Oh. Chapter 2559. Damn it. Ancestral Gragon's expression changed. He controlled the dragon horn and slashed it at the foreign race's divine ancestor. At the same time, he roared, Lu Ming, quick, stop him. Ancestral Gragon's voice was filled with panic, unable to remain calm. Although Lu Ming was confused, he knew that the golden seal was of great importance. Otherwise, Ancestral Gragon wouldn't have lost his composure. Lu Ming pushed his speed to the limit. At the same time, he used all his strength to throw out the Great Baron spear. Whoosh! Now that Lu Ming had doubled his combat strength, he was extremely powerful. He threw out the Great Baron spear and it turned into a bolt of lightning. In a flash, it charged toward the divine ancestor. However, the foreign race's divine ancestor didn't care about Ancestral Gragon's and Lu Ming's attacks. He only had eyes for the golden seal. Boom! The foreign race's divine ancestor slashed at the golden seal like a sword. The golden seal shook violently and burst out with a bright light. Rip, like a piece of cloth being torn apart, a huge hole was torn in the golden seal. At this time, Ancestral Gragon and Lu Ming's attacks arrived. Poof! Poof! The dragon horn controlled by Ancestral Gragon slashed the foreign race's divine ancestor's back, almost splitting him in half. At the same time, Lu Ming's Great Baron spear also pierced the foreign race's divine ancestor's back. The foreign race's divine ancestor was severely injured. His aura withered and he became extremely weak. However, his face was filled with madness. Ha ha ha, the heaven-suppressing seal has been torn. The experts of the outside world are coming. Ancestral Gragon, what's the use of sealing the sky? You're still going to die. Even if I die, you'll die with me. Ha ha ha. The foreign race's divine ancestor laughed maniacally. He didn't hide his voice at all and it spread throughout the heaven domain. Sinkhole Battlefield, Two World City Battlefield. Upon hearing this voice, everyone's expression changed. Their hearts trembled violently. Especially those from the evil god tribe, their faces were pale. It was obvious that the foreign race's divine ancestor had been defeated. How could this be? The evil god tribe members found it hard to believe and accept. If the foreign race's divine ancestor was defeated, then they were doomed. Retreat, retreat! In an instant, the morale of the evil god tribe members was gone and they retreated frantically. Kill! The people of the Heaven Domain's army. They didn't understand what the foreign race's divine ancestor meant, but they knew that the foreign race's divine ancestor had been defeated. Their morale boosted, they chased after the foreign race's Gragon. "Mo, you're crazy," the ancestral dragon roared and charged toward the outsider sacred ancestor. "I'm crazy. The ones who are crazy are you and that old bastard Jinyu. You guys are stubborn and overestimating yourselves, heezes. Twos." He was going all out. When he saw that Lu Ming's combat strength had skyrocketed and that Saint Ancestor Xiaofan had been killed, he knew that he would not be able to survive. If Lu Ming and the ancestral Gragon joined forces, he would definitely die. Therefore, he attacked the golden talisman frantically. Gragons to S's. S with the Gragon, S. S Mingses. Ancestral Gragon stopped him. At the same time, Lu Ming arrived and attacked the foreign race's divine ancestor. The foreign race's divine ancestor was severely injured by the two of them. He was no match for them. After a few moves, Lu Ming punched through the body of the foreign race's divine ancestor. Ancestral Gragon's claws tore it apart. Ancestral Gragon, I'll wait for you below, the foreign race's divine ancestor laughed. Ancestral Gragon controlled the dragon horn to split his head into two, destroying his body and soul. Both the foreign race's divine ancestor and divine ancestor Xiaofan were dead. It was a complete victory. However, Ancestral Gragon didn't look happy at all. Instead, he looked dejected. Sigh. Looking at the torn golden seal, Ancestral Gragon let out a long sigh filled with helplessness. Senior, this is... Lu Ming had many doubts in his heart and was about to ask. Boom! At this moment, a terrifying aura was emitted from the crack in the golden talisman. Even with Lu Ming's current cultivation level, he was scared witless and could not resist this aura. Ancestral Gragon and Lu Ming retreated quickly. What's that? At this moment, Lu Ming's eyes widened in shock. There were two balls of light behind the tear. They seemed to be a pair of eyes. They were dazzling and terrifying. Lu Ming's heart raced when he saw the two balls of light. It was as if he was an ant facing an ancient beast. We've been discovered. A disaster is coming. Ancestral Gragon sighed. However, the two balls of light flickered a few times and disappeared. Senior, what's that? Lu Ming asked. There are powerful beings outside. They have their eyes on this place. However, they can't come in for the time being. Let's go and eliminate the rest of the evil god tribe first. Ancestral Gragon said. Okay. Lu Ming nodded. Although he was curious, he wasn't in a hurry. He took a step forward and charged toward the battlefield of Two World City. As for Ancestral Gragon, he headed toward the Ultimate Ruins battlefield. At this moment, the evil god tribe's heaven-crushing army was almost completely wiped out by Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjuan. 100,000 experts had fallen. The evil god tribe was completely one-sided. They knew that the foreign race's divine ancestor was finished. How could they still have the courage to fight? Not only were the ordinary experts fleeing, but even the heavenly emperors and demigods were fleeing. Number 1, you fled so quickly. If you have the ability, let's fight to the death. The chaotic the Arch chased closely behind the number 1 king. The number 1 king's face was gloomy. He didn't say a word and frantically tore through space to escape. The other foreign race demigods were the same. Swoosh! Suddenly, a black sword light flashed. Not far away, a foreign race demigod was killed. Then, a figure appeared. It was Xian Yanqing. Xian Yanqing's gaze was cold as he looked at the number 1 king. The number 1 king's face was pale. Xian Yanqing's combat strength was too strong. He was no match for him. If he was targeted, only death would await him. Chaotic the Arch, if you want to die, let's die together. Suddenly, a ferocious expression appeared on the number 1 king's face. Instead of running away, he charged toward the chaotic the Arch. Terrifying energy fluctuations erupted from his body. Self-destruct, the chaotic Thearcha's expression changed drastically. Clearly, the number 1 king knew that he couldn't escape, so he might as well throw caution to the wind and drag the chaotic the Arch down with him. His strength was about the same as the chaotic Thearcha's. If he suddenly chose to self-destruct, the chaotic the Arch would most likely die. The chaotic the Arch frantically retreated, but he couldn't retreat at all. Right at this moment, a purplish golden hand suddenly appeared and grabbed toward the number 1 king tier. Ah! The number 1 king roared. Before he could self-destruct, the purple gold hand grabbed him and squeezed. The number 1 king died on the spot. Then, a figure flashed. Lu Ming appeared. Is this the combat strength of a martial god? The chaotic the arch was shocked. The number 1 king, who was no weaker than him, self-destructed with all his strength. However, he couldn't even self-destruct in the hands of Lu Ming. He was crushed to death like an ant. Chapter 2560. Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing exchanged a glance, smiled slightly, and then tore through the void and left respectively. Run, run, run. In front, a few foreign race old kings were frantically fleeing. But in front of them, a figure suddenly appeared. It's him. All of the foreign monarchs' expressions changed drastically at the sight of this figure. This figure was naturally Lu Ming. Since Lu Ming was here, it meant that the divine ancestor of the other tribes was in grave danger. Everyone, I'll send you on your way. Lu Ming said coldly, and then waved his hand. Rays of spear light burst forth. Several foreign race old kings wanted to escape, but in front of Lu Ming, they couldn't even withstand a single blow. Pft! 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 Several old kings were directly pierced through by Lu Ming's spear light, dying on the spot. After killing a few foreign race old kings, Lu Ming did not stop at all and directly tore through the void and left. He specialized in hunting foreign race powerhouses above the peak of the Heavenly Emperor realm. Because powerhouses above the peak of the Heavenly Emperor realm could directly tear through the void and travel through different worlds. However, in Lu Ming's hands, none of these people could escape. Lu Ming constantly shuttled through the void, hunting down foreign race powerhouses above the peak of the Heavenly Emperor realm. As a result, the experts of the Heaven Realm were freed up and joined the Heaven Realm's army to chase after the foreign race army. It was a completely one-sided situation. After the Heaven Realm's peak powerhouses and demigod-level powerhouses joined the battlefield, it became a complete massacre. A large number of foreign race heavenly emperors, great emperors, true emperors, void emperors, and quasi-emperors were slaughtered. This massacre lasted for several days. Almost all the foreign race powerhouses were slaughtered, and almost none of them escaped back to the evil god realm. A great victory, a true great victory. After that, the demigods and peak heavenly emperors of the Heaven Realm directly killed their way to the evil god race, flattening the 10 great capital cities and sacred mountains of the evil god realm, slaughtering all the powerhouses above the martial emperor realm. Facing the evil god race, no one was lenient. Because on both sides, either you die, or I die. Victory, we won. Ha ha ha. Cheers could be heard everywhere in the Heaven Realm. Countless people were extremely excited. He had finally won. For countless years, the evil god race had been a huge rock that pressed down on the hearts of countless people in the heavenly realm. It was as if a blade was hanging over everyone's heads, ready to chop down at any moment. The pressure made it hard for many people to breathe. But now, the evil god race that had suppressed the Heaven Realm for countless years had been defeated by them. All their experts had been killed. From now on, the Heaven Realm would no longer have any external enemies. Naturally, they were very excited. Lu Ming did not participate in the battle that followed. He returned to the lair of Zulong. Ancestral Gragon had already arrived. He had his hands behind his back as he looked at the golden seal and the ferocious crack. His expression was extremely ugly. Senior, Lu Ming cupped his fists. He's here. Ancestral Gragon spoke with a desolate voice, as if he had aged a lot in an instant. I know you have a lot of questions. Originally, I didn't want to tell you about this. But now, I have no choice. I'll gather everyone here and tell you all the details of this matter. Ancestral Dragon said. Lu Ming nodded. Then, Ancestral Gragon took out a big drum and suddenly hit it. Dong! 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 The war drum vibrated, and the roaring sound spread out at a terrifying speed. The entire Taiching sky domain could hear it. It could even spread to other heavenly domains. In the heaven realm, countless people were celebrating. But after hearing the war drum, everyone's expression changed drastically. What's going on? This is a war drum. It's so urgent. It's only rung when there's an extreme crisis. Who rung the war drum? This is the ancestral Gregon war drum. Only senior ancestral Gregon can sound it. What's going on? At this moment, the heaven realm was in an uproar. Didn't they win a great victory? Why would ancestral Gregon sound this war drum? Could it be that there was another crisis in the heaven realm? The previous excitement disappeared without a trace. Everyone's heart was covered with a layer of shadow. Countless people flew towards the lair of Zulong. Moreover, the news spread rapidly. The experts struggling in the evil god realm also heard the news and rushed to the lair of Zulong. Not long after, the void near the lair of Zulong flashed, and Xian Yanqing and Xian Yinjuan appeared. They glanced at the golden seal and their eyes flashed. They seemed to understand something. After that, more and more people arrived. Greetings, martial god. Everyone came forward to greet Lu Ming and ancestral Gregon. Lu Ming had fully demonstrated the combat strength of a martial god. They naturally regarded Lu Ming as a martial god and were respectful. Lu Ming and ancestral Gregon nodded and did not say much. As time passed, more and more creatures gathered near the lair of Zulong. A few days later, this place was densely packed with countless heaven realm experts. The strongest group of people in the heaven realm were almost all present. Almost everyone is here. Ancestral Gregon glanced at the crowd and said, "Today, I have something to tell you." I didn't want to say these things at first. No one spoke at the scene, waiting for ancestral Gregon to continue. The foreign tribe Divine Ancestor Sha Xian, is dead, ancestral Gregon said. He's really dead. Most people in the heaven realm were ecstatic. They were just guessing before, but now that ancestral Gregon confirmed it, they finally felt relieved. However, some people did not show any joy because they could see that there was no joy on ancestral Gregon's face. Instead, he looked solemn. Ancestral Gregon waved his hand and the scene quieted down. Let me tell you, although we have defeated the foreign tribe, a greater crisis is coming soon. Ancestral Gregon continued. What? As soon as ancestral Gregon said this, most people were shocked and puzzled. A greater crisis? Since the foreign tribe had been defeated, how could there be a greater crisis? Could it be? Many people looked at the golden seal and the crack. Boom! At this moment, a terrifying aura came from the crack again. The aura was indescribably terrifying. Everyone's expression changed drastically, and they all wanted to kneel down. Then, two balls of light appeared and flickered non-stop. After a while, they left. Gulp, gulp, many people kept swallowing their saliva, and their expressions were very solemn. They guessed that the crisis that ancestral Gregon mentioned might come from there. However, what was behind the golden seal? Why was there such a terrifying aura that was several times stronger than ancestral Gregon's? Was there an existence stronger than the martial god in the world? Many people were puzzled. Do you know why the evil god tribe attacked the heaven realm and why they wanted to destroy it? Ancestral Gregon continued. Many people's eyes flickered, including Lu Ming. Lu Ming had always been puzzled by this question. Why did the evil god tribe have to attack the heaven realm and destroy it? Wasn't it good for both sides to get along peacefully? Even if they were fighting for resources, they shouldn't have gone to war. Chapter 2561. Everyone looked at ancestral Gregon, waiting for him to continue. Ancestral Gregon pondered for a while, as if thinking about how to phrase it. After a while, he said, "Evil god tribe, why did the foreign race's divine ancestor attack the heavenly realm and destroy us?" "It's because of that," Ancestral Gragon pointed at the golden seal and said, "the heaven-suppressing seal. Their goal is to tear the heaven-suppressing seal." Heaven-suppressing seal. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. They knew that the seal was called the heaven-suppressing seal. However, why did the evil god tribe have to tear the heaven-suppressing seal? If you want to know all this, you have to start from the structure of this world or this universe. For example, people who cultivate laws can cultivate small worlds when they reach the martial emperor realm. However, such small worlds have flaws no matter how strong their cultivation is. For example, the heavenly realm, the primordial realm, and the evil god realm are naturally born. The laws and great Tao are perfect, and the heavenly Tao rules. Such worlds can allow people to cultivate until they reach the half-god realm. Such worlds are called small worlds. At this point, Ancestral Gragon paused, as if giving everyone time to digest. Small worlds? Many people were shocked, and their imaginations ran wild. From what Ancestral Gragon said, other than the evil god realm, the heavenly realm, and the primordial realm, could there be other worlds? Some people with weaker cultivations thought that the world was only so big. There were only the heavenly realm, the primordial realm, and the evil god realm. They never thought that there were other worlds. Naturally, they were even more shocked now. Everyone's imagination ran wild as their thoughts swirled. If there are small worlds, there will naturally be great worlds. The great worlds are called the Great Desolate Universe. There is also another name, the Deity Realm. That place is vast and boundless. No one knows how vast it is. Ancestral Gragon continued. As expected, the Great Desolate Universe. Lu Ming was shocked to hear the term Great Desolate Universe again. Back then, White Fang had mentioned it in Yellow Spring Island. The primitive universe is too vast. The minor kiliocosm is like a speck of dust compared to the primitive universe. The number of minor kiliocosms attached to the primitive universe is unimaginable. No one knows how many there are. And our heavenly realm, the primordial realm, and the evil god tribe is a small world. Ancestral Gragon continued to explain. What? Most of the people at the scene were tongue-tied and dumbfounded. Ancestral Gragon's words simply overturned their worldview and overturned their understanding. The heaven realm, the primordial realm, and the evil god realm added together was only a small kiliocosm. And there were countless small kiliocosms attached to the primitive universe. This meant that there were countless worlds similar to the heaven realm, the primordial realm, and the evil god realm. Above them, there was an unimaginably vast universe. The highest cultivation in the small world is the half-martial god realm. If you want to rank up to the martial god realm, you'll have to head to the desolate universe. Before the primordial era, the heaven realm, the primordial realm, and the evil god realm were connected to the primitive universe. Therefore, many demigods before that era went to the primitive universe. Ancestral Dragon said. If that's the case, why is it that no one has gone out yet? Someone couldn't help but ask. I know you're confused. The heaven realm, the primordial realm, and the evil god realm are all considered small kiliocosms. There's only one passage that leads to the primitive universe. That passage is right there. Ancestral Dragon pointed at the heaven-suppressing rune and continued, the reason why we can't go out now is that in the primordial era, the hell-suppressing rune and I joined forces to seal this passage. What? Many people were shocked, especially some of the demigods. They could not understand why the Ancestral Dragon and the hell-suppressing rune would join forces to seal this passage. Sigh. At this moment, Ancestral Gragon sighed and said with a bitter expression, actually, many of the minor worlds are controlled by the major forces of the primitive universe. This place is not an exception. It is controlled by a powerful force of the primitive universe. That faction is called the Yuan Luo Palace. It's made up of many races and is extremely powerful. Our world is their private property. In the primitive universe, humans, divine beasts, and other races are all very intelligent races. Therefore, the Yuan Luo Palace will come here every once in a while and select a group of powerful prodigies to go out. Do you know why they select these prodigies? It's not to nurture them, but to refine them into pills for their cultivation. Rumble. Ancestral Dragon's words shocked many people. Their world was controlled by a faction called the Yuan Luo Palace in the primitive universe, and the Yuan Luo Palace was using them to refine pills. What was the difference between this and the spiritual herbs that were bred in captivity? That's right. The Yuan Luo Palace has turned this small kiliacosm into a pasture and herb garden. When needed, they will extract a portion of the excellent herbs to refine pills. All humans and divine beasts are the herbs that the Yuan Luo Palace has bred. Ancestral Dragon said with an even uglier expression. How can this be? Most people, including Lu Ming, had ugly expressions. They had never imagined that they were just herbs that were bred by someone else. This was a great mockery, and also a great blow to him. The prison protector and I couldn't stand it. The prison protector had a fortuitous encounter and obtained the heaven-suppressing talisman. The two of us controlled the heaven-suppressing talisman to seal this passage. However, we were still discovered by the Yuan Luo Palace when we were sealing it. An expert from the Yuan Luo Palace roared and ordered the evil god tribe to destroy us and open the seal. The evil god tribe isn't of much use to the Yuan Luo Palace. Very few of them are used to refine pills. On the contrary, they have received many benefits from the Yuan Luo Palace. Naturally, they didn't want the passage to be sealed. Therefore, the divine ancestor of the other races, divine ancestor Xiaofan, wanted to destroy us and open the seal. Ancestral Dragon explained. Everyone came to a sudden realization. They understood everything now. They finally understood why the evil god race insisted on attacking the heavenly realm, insisting on destroying the heavenly realm. They wanted to open the seal and claim credit from the Yuan Luo Palace. Ancestral Dragon and the prison protector ancestor couldn't bear to see the humans and divine beasts being enslaved by the Yuan Luo Palace and used as herbs. That was the reason for the ancient war. Originally, I didn't want to talk about this. If we had defeated the evil god tribe, this matter would have been over. If we had lost, there would have been no need to reveal this secret. Sigh. Ancestral Dragon sighed. Lu Ming also sighed. He understood Ancestral Dragon's thoughts. It was really hard to accept that they were just herbs that had been bred by someone else. It was too much of a blow. It was really sad. If they didn't have to talk about it, they would naturally choose not to. However, the divine ancestor of the other races risked his life and tore a hole in the heaven-suppressing talisman. This way, the experts of the Yuan Luo Palace will definitely find a way to come in. We won't be able to escape this disaster. You should know the whole story. Therefore, I will tell you everything today. Ancestral Dragon said. Chapter 2562. Ancestral Dragon had explained everything clearly. Everyone's doubts had been answered, but no one was happy. There was only heaviness and anger. Kill. We'll kill our way out and fight to the death with the Yuan Luo Palace. Yes, we'll kill our way out. Even if we die, we'll kill to our heart's content. Many hot-tempered people started to shout. Ancestral Dragon raised his hand and the crowd quieted down. Fight? How? Ancestral Dragon shook his head and sighed. Do you know how strong the Yuan Luo Palace is? The evil god tribe can't be compared to them. I can tell you that I, Old Ancestor Zhenyu, Saint Ancestor Xiaofan, and the other tribe's divine ancestor were once part of the Yuan Luo Palace. We're just ordinary guards in the Yuan Luo Palace. The Yuan Luo Palace has thousands of guards just like us. Hiss hiss hiss, Ancestral Gragon's words caused the crowd to gasp in astonishment. Everyone looked at each other. Ancestral Gragon, Old Ancestor Zhenyu, and the other tribe's divine ancestor were martial gods. They were legendary existences in the heaven boundary and the evil god boundary. However, such existences were only ordinary guards in the Yuan Luo Palace. And there were tens of thousands of guards like them. How could they fight? The other party could just send in a few martial gods to kill them. The primitive universe was also known as the Divine World. As the name suggested, the Divine World was the world of the divine beings. The four of us were sent here by the Yuan Luo Palace to guard this place. To put it bluntly, we were sent here because we were weak. Therefore, it's difficult for us to resist the Yuan Luo Palace. However, the Lesser Thousand Realm is still a Lesser Thousand Realm. It's too weak. Therefore, powerful experts can't enter. Once they enter, they'll destroy the Lesser Thousand Realm. Therefore, we're not completely without hope. Ancestral Gragon said. However, most of them were filled with despair. They couldn't imagine how they could fight against a force that had thousands of martial gods. Alright, I've said what I need to say. You can all leave now. Go back and do what you need to do. If the Yuan Luo Palace comes, we'll just fight. Ancestral Gragon said. That's right, we'll fight. We'll die. Some people shouted. However, even more people sighed. Originally, they had been very happy and excited after defeating the evil god tribe. Unexpectedly, an even stronger and more terrifying enemy had appeared. This kind of situation really made people despair. Most of the people left with heavy hearts. Lu Ming did not leave. He asked Xian Yanqing and the others to go back first. He stayed behind because he still had questions to ask the Ancestral Gragon. Not long after, everyone left, leaving only Lu Ming and Ancestral Gragon. Lu Ming, I know you still have questions. What do you want to know? Ancestral Dragon said. Senior, I do have some doubts. Since the Origin Luo Hall has so many experts and even the foreign race's divine ancestor could break the sky suppression seal, why didn't the experts of the Origin Luo Hall break it from the outside? Lu Ming asked. That's right. Although the sky suppression seal was obtained from an ancient relic, it's extremely powerful. Once it's sealed from the inside of the heaven region, it can mobilize the power of the entire heaven region. It's difficult for an ordinary martial god to break it from the outside, but stronger martial gods can indeed break it from the outside. However, the small Kiliacosm is weak. Once it's broken, the entire heaven region will be destroyed. The Origin Luo Hall can't bear to do that. They want to destroy us and break it from the inside. This way, the heaven region and the primordial realm can become a place for them to keep medicinal herbs. Ancestral Gragon said. This answer made Lu Ming feel helpless. The other party did not break in because they were afraid of destroying the heaven region. If they were ruthless, they could destroy the heaven region at any time. Their fates were not in his control. Next, the Origin Luo Hall will definitely not send anyone too strong. However, I'm afraid they will send someone below the Empty God Realm. Ancestral Gragon said. Empty God Realm? Lu Ming was puzzled. This is the division of the Martial God Realm. Normally, those who have just become martial gods are in the Empty God Realm. Ancestral Gragon nodded. Are there any realms above the Empty God Realm? Lu Ming asked curiously. Yes, above the Empty God Realm is the True God Realm, the Heavenly God Realm and the Divine King Realm. Each realm is divided into 9 levels. Ancestral Gragon said. Empty God Realm, True God Realm, Heavenly God Realm and the Divine King Realm. Lu Ming muttered. It turned out that there were realms above the martial god realm. He still had a long way to go. Although he was strong now, he was only at the peak of the heaven region, the primordial realm and the evil god realm. However, the heaven region, the primordial realm and the evil god realm were just one of the countless small kiliocosms. They were nothing compared to the chaotic universe. Those above the empty god realm are too strong. The surge of divine force can easily destroy a place like the heaven region. Therefore, they will most likely send those below the empty god realm. However, those below the empty god realm will definitely be attacked by the heaven-suppressing seal and will definitely be injured. Therefore, we still have a chance. However, we still have to be careful. The difference between each level in the empty god realm is huge. It is not comparable to the heavenly emperor realm. As for me, the divine ancestor, Zhen Yu and Xiaofan, we are all at the empty god realm. Lu Ming, although you are a one-star heavenly emperor, you can fight against a level 1 empty god. However, even if you become a 2-star heavenly emperor, you will not be able to fight against a level 2 empty god. Do you understand? Ancestral Gragon warned seriously. Lu Ming nodded. It was easy to understand. The difference between each level in the empty god realm was bigger than the heavenly emperor realm. Even if he had become a 2-star heavenly emperor, the increase in strength would not be as big as the empty god realm. Therefore, he might not be able to fight against a level 2 empty god. Of course, this was under the condition that he did not activate the battle formula to double his combat strength. Lu Ming, go back and cultivate. I will stay here and inform you immediately if there is any movement. Ancestral Gragon said. All right. Lu Ming nodded. He then turned around and returned to the Dragon Emperor Peak. At that moment, many people had gathered at the Dragon Emperor Peak. Xie Nianqing, Long Chen, Huang Ling and the rest were all there. However, many of them looked solemn. Ancestral Gragon's words were like a rock that pressed down on their hearts. Lu Ming chatted with the crowd for a while before they dispersed and went to cultivate. No matter what kind of enemy they would face, the most important thing was to improve themselves. Lu Ming entered a secret room and sat down with his legs crossed. He then moved his hand and the Great Baron Spear appeared in his hand. One could see that the Great Baron Spear was full of cracks and its spirituality was greatly reduced. It was already half destroyed. A sacred weapon is indeed powerful. Lu Ming muttered. Previously, he had used the Great Baron Spear to fight against the Divine Ancestor and the Great Baron Spear had been damaged. After looking at it for a while, Lu Ming kept the Great Baron Spear and a combat sword appeared in his hand. Chapter 2563. Lu Ming put away the Great Desolate Spear and took out a battle sword. This battle sword was given to him by Baiya. It was a divine weapon. During the battle with the divine ancestors, Lu Ming had just broken through and did not have the time to refine this divine weapon. Therefore, he could only fight with the Great Desolate Spear. Lu Ming used the Great Desolate Spear to fight the enemy. Initially, he was at a slight disadvantage when he encountered the sacred ancestor of a foreign tribe who had a divine weapon. He only managed to suppress the other party after activating the battle formula to double his combat power. If Lu Ming refined this divine weapon, even if he did not activate the battle word sutra, he would be able to fight against a foreign tribe's sacred ancestor. Lu Ming intended to refine this divine weapon now. In this way, his ability would be enhanced. With a thought, the sovereign force enveloped the battle sword and began to refine it. The sovereign force could dominate the world. It was easy for him to refine the divine weapon. In just a few days, Lu Ming had refined the battle sword. Buzz! The battle sword floated in front of Lu Ming. It vibrated slightly and emitted a mysterious glow. Return! Lu Ming's mind stirred and the combat sword transformed into a beam of light, dashing into his glabella and disappearing. Lu Ming was able to do this. If it were any other heavenly emperor, they would not be able to refine or control a divine weapon. A divine weapon was a weapon used by martial gods. However, it was not a problem for Lu Ming to control it with the power of a master. After refining the divine weapon, Lu Ming planned to comprehend the sovereign Tao and the battle formula. Lu Ming did not know when the experts of the Yuan Luo Hall would arrive. He had to make good use of his time and improve his strength as much as possible. With a thought, a scroll opened in his sea of consciousness, revealing Jing Yu's portrait. Dense sovereign force filled the air. Lu Ming could sense the sovereign Tao's power at all times. Lu Ming began to focus on comprehending the sovereign Tao. Days passed, and Lu Ming's understanding of the Tao of the sovereign lord continued to improve. In the past few decades, Lu Ming had been stuck at the peak of the martial monarch realm. He had been obstructed by the heavenly Tao and could not advance any further. But now, Lu Ming had broken through, and with the help of Jing Yu's portrait, his understanding of the Tao of sovereign was improving rapidly. Every day, he would gain quite a bit. The strange thing was that the Yuan Luo Palace did not make any moves. In the blink of an eye, 10 years had passed. In these 10 years, the Yuan Luo Palace had not sent anyone in. In the past 10 years, Lu Ming had benefited greatly from the shocking feather painting, and his Tao of the sovereign lord had improved significantly. Right now, I can already assail 2-star heavenly emperor. Then let's assail it. Lu Ming whispered. Then, he took out a large number of divine stones, origin stones, chaos stones, and so on. Originally, the divine stones that he brought out of the Yellow Springs mountain had already been consumed by 90% when he broke through to the heavenly emperor realm. But later on, they defeated the evil god race. Lu Ming obtained a large number of divine stones, origin stones, chaos stones, and primordial stones from the evil god race's powerhouses. Now, it was just nice to help Lu Ming break through. Refine. Lu Ming waved his hand. The power of sovereign enveloped those divine stones, chaos stones, origin stones, and so on. These divine stones and chaos stones exploded upon collision. Surging energy gathered towards Lu Ming frenziedly. All of it was absorbed and refined by Lu Ming, transforming into world power and sovereign power. Lu Ming launched an assault towards 2-star heavenly emperor. Half a month later, Lu Ming's aura skyrocketed. His cultivation had precisely stepped into 2-star heavenly emperor, and his strength increased by a level. Broke through. Lu Ming revealed a look of joy. Cultivation breakthrough, combat power increase. Lu Ming's confidence was a little more abundant. However, the resources consumed were too horrifying. The resources in Lu Ming's hands were almost depleted. If he wanted to continue breaking through in the future, he did not know what to use to break through. Forget it for now. Lu Ming shook his head, then cultivated for a few days. After his realm stabilized, Lu Ming began to comprehend the battle character formula again. In these 10 years, Lu Ming did not stop comprehending the battle character formula. His comprehension of the battle character formula became deeper and deeper. Now, on average, he could trigger double combat strength once every 5 times. This was undoubtedly very advantageous in a great battle. Lu Ming, come quickly. Right at this time, a voice sounded in Lu Ming's ear. It was Ancestral Gragon's voice. It sounded somewhat urgent. Are powerhouses from Yuan Luo Hall about to descend? Lu Ming immediately thought of Yuan Luo Hall. Lu Ming took a step forward, the space cracked, and directly disappeared. In the next moment, Lu Ming appeared at the original location of the lair of Zulong. Ancestral Gragon was looking at the heaven-suppressing rune with a solemn expression. Rumble. At this moment, the heaven-suppressing rune was shaking violently. The crack torn by the foreign tribe's divine ancestor was swelling, as if something was about to rush in. The two were on full alert, ready to attack at any time. Rumble. The crack shook more and more violently. Finally, with a sudden roar, a huge round bead rushed in from the crack. Attack! Lu Ming and Ancestral Gregon were about to attack first to gain the upper hand and destroy the other party. However, just as the two were about to attack, the round bead exploded, and terrifying energy overflowed. Not good. The two's expressions changed. The energy was too terrifying. The two quickly retreated to avoid the energy. In the area where the round bead exploded, the space was completely torn apart. Ferocious cracks appeared in the space within a radius of millions of miles, like a spider web, covering the sky. Whoosh! Whoosh! In the chaotic space, Lu Ming saw a few streams of light flying in all directions from the area where the round bead exploded, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Living beings. Lu Ming saw clearly that the streams of light were living beings. They flew to various places in the heaven realm, and some even flew into the dark void. For a moment, Lu Ming couldn't determine how many living beings there were. Obviously, the terrifying living beings from the outside world had come in and rode on the round bead. After a short while, the chaotic space returned to normal. Ancestral Gregon's expression was very ugly. No wonder no one from Yuan Luo Hall has come in for the past 10 years. It turns out that they were trying to create that round bead to resist the power of the heaven-suppressing rune. Ancestral Gregon said with a gloomy expression. So the other party who came in wasn't injured? Lu Ming asked. No, most of them were injured. The heaven-suppressing rune is very lethal to low-level hollow gods. Now, we just don't know how many experts came in. Ancestral Gregon said solemnly. In the northern region of Taiching Sky Domain, a stream of light flew over and crashed into a mountain range. Boom! Boom! The mountain range shook, and the peaks collapsed. What's going on? The divine beasts and humans who were cultivating in the surroundings were shocked and stood around to watch. Whoosh! Suddenly, a blood-red light spread out from the mountain range in front of them. Then, a terrifying suction force erupted. Not good, retreat. The surrounding humans and divine beasts' expressions changed drastically, and they wanted to retreat. However, they found that they couldn't retreat at all because the suction force was too terrifying. Their bodies were sucked in by the suction force. After a few screams, there was no more sound. Chapter 2564. After devouring the divine beasts and humans, a bloody light shone brightly, and in a flash, a strange creature appeared in the air. The creature was in the shape of a human, but it had long blood-red hair and sharp fangs in its mouth. There was also a pair of blood-red wings on its back. It looked like a bat in human form. The flesh and blood of the divine beasts of the human clan are too delicious, too delicious. The human-shaped bat licked its lips and revealed an intoxicated expression, as well as a deep greed and thirst for blood. He spread out his spiritual consciousness and instantly enveloped the entire northern region of the Grand Pure Celestial Domain. Ha ha, so many humans and divine beasts. This ranch is not bad. I'll enjoy it first. The human-shaped bat laughed sinisterly and took a step forward. In the next moment, he appeared in the sky above a huge city. This huge city was a famous one in the northern region of the Grand Pure Celestial Domain. There were more than 100 million humans and divine beasts in this huge city, and several major factions lived there. Ha ha ha, you'll all become my food and replenish my energy. The human-shaped bat laughed sinisterly. Its body rapidly expanded to 100,000 feet tall, and a terrifying aura spread in all directions. Heavens, what's that? What a terrifying aura! When the living beings in the giant city discovered the human-shaped bat, they were all stunned. The main thing was that the human-shaped bat's aura was too terrifying. Divine might, that's divine might. He's a deity. One of the celestial emperors in the huge city shouted in horror. A deity? Everyone's hearts trembled. Apart from the ancestral dragon and Lu Ming, there were no other deities in the celestial domain, primordial realm, or fiend god realm. Oh no, run, run. Suddenly, someone roared and rushed out of the city. They remembered the ancestral dragon's words. The beings of the primitive universe would attack the celestial domain from beyond the heavens. Now that a deity had appeared out of nowhere, it must have come from beyond the heavens. You want to leave? Where can you go in front of me? The human-shaped bat grinned maliciously as it reached out with its gigantic hand, covering the sky and covering the earth. The fleeing humans and divine beasts, numbering in the thousands, were all caught and stuffed into its bloody mouth, chewing on them. Blood flowed along the fangs of the humanoid bat. Delicious, truly delicious. Ha! The human-shaped bat laughed heartily. Even with the protection of the bead, he was still injured when he entered the primitive universe. At this moment, he could devour these divine beasts to heal himself. Seeing several thousand people being devoured in a blink of an eye, even including a heavenly emperor realm expert, the people in the enormous city panicked and began to flee madly outside. Ha ha ha, become my delicacy. The benefits of this mission are too good. The human-shaped bat laughed heartily. It opened its bloody mouth and swallowed. A terrifying suction force erupted, and countless people in the giant city involuntarily flew toward the bat's mouth. Ah, help! No, no, countless humans and divine beasts screamed in horror. True emperors, great emperors, and heavenly emperors couldn't resist at all. They were directly devoured by the bat as food. Hundreds of thousands of beings were devoured in one gulp, and there was an endless stream of them being devoured. More than half of the 100 million inhabitants in the enormous city were devoured in the blink of an eye. Ha ha ha, this minor dimension has so little pressure, it's too fragile. I can destroy the world here. The human-shaped bat laughed maniacally and continued to devour. At the same time, a figure as tall as the sky was walking through the air in the southern region of Grand Lucidity. This figure was also in human form, but he was shrouded in a black robe. He held a large banner in his hand with countless shadows scurrying about on it. These black shadows were all souls, like evil spirits. Whoosh! This figure also came to the sky above a giant city. Without saying a word, he waved the banner and it became infinitely large, enveloping the entire city. Not long after, the banner was lifted and all the living beings in the giant city perished. Their souls were sucked into the banner. Then, he moved on to the next big city. It was a massacre, an endless massacre. Wherever these two creatures passed, there was endless slaughter. They treated the humans and divine beasts as nourishment and enjoyed them to their heart's content. In the lair of Zulong, Lu Ming and ancestral Gragon spread out their spiritual senses and immediately discovered this scene. Damn it! Ancestral Gragon's face was ferocious as he roared angrily. Lu Ming's face was also extremely cold. Both of them are at level 1 empty god realm. Lu Ming, you and I will take one each. Ancestral Gragon said to Lu Ming. All right. Lu Ming nodded and took a step forward, heading toward the northern region of Grand Lucidity Sky Domain. Ancestral Gragon, on the other hand, headed toward the southern region of Grand Lucidity Sky Domain. In the northern region of Grand Lucidity Sky Domain, the human-shaped bat creature had already devoured all the living beings in the giant city. The vast and spacious giant city, which was originally extremely prosperous, was now empty. Not even a dog or a chick was left. Awesome, this is awesome. The human-shaped bat creature burped and the greed in its eyes became more intense. It set its eyes on the next giant city and its huge body was about to rush toward it. However, at this moment, the void in front of it split open and a figure stepped out. This figure was naturally Lu Ming. At this moment, Lu Ming's face was extremely cold and his body exuded an extremely strong killing intent. These people from Yuan Luo Hall had really treated them as medicinal herbs and could be harvested and slaughtered at will. A transformation void stage ant? The human-shaped bat creature was slightly stunned when it saw Lu Ming. I will make you die a horrible death. Lu Ming said coldly and stepped forward. What? Make me die a horrible death? Ha ha ha, with just a transformation void stage ant like you? The human-shaped bat creature laughed maniacally. It called the Heavenly Emperor realm exactly the same as in the Yellow Springs world. Boom! Suddenly, the human-shaped bat creature moved and reached out a large hand to grab Lu Ming. In its opinion, Lu Ming, a transformation void stage ant, was too arrogant. It wanted to swallow Lu Ming in one gulp. Kill. Lu Ming was too lazy to talk nonsense with the opponent. The god weapon battle sword appeared in his hand and erupted with the Tao of Sovereign as he slashed out. Sword light surged and a sword mark that was millions of miles long appeared in the sky. Poof! The human-shaped bat creature's hand was split in half. Ah! The human-shaped bat creature screamed and stretched its arm back. How is this possible? You have mastered the Tao of Sovereign. How can someone in a small world master the Tao of Sovereign? The human-shaped bat creature cried out in disbelief. Kill. Lu Ming's killing intent was as cold as a knife. He held the battle sword in his hand and attacked the opponent. Chapter 2565. Lu Ming had comprehended the battle formula. The battle formula was the origin of all battles. After comprehending the battle formula, no matter what move or divine ability it was, its power would be enhanced. Moreover, no matter what weapon it was, it would be easy to use and its power would be maximized. Therefore, there was no difference between Lu Ming using a battle sword and a long spear. It seems that the trash of the three-eyed race died in your hands. The human-shaped bat roared and took out a scissor-like divine artifact and attacked Lu Ming. Boom! The two of them collided head-on. The human-shaped bat's body shook violently and retreated rapidly. How is this possible? Your combat strength. The human-shaped bat was shocked. Lu Ming was just a void transformation realm existence. How could his combat strength be so strong? Could it be that those who had mastered the Tao of Sovereign were so strong? The human-shaped bat could not calm down. Even in the primitive universe, those who had mastered the Tao of Sovereign were rare geniuses. He had only heard of them but had never seen them. He had never thought that they would be so terrifying that he would be at a disadvantage. Swoosh! Lu Ming defeated the human-shaped bat with one move and continued to attack his opponent. The two of them exchanged a few more moves. The human-shaped bat was no match for him at all and was sent flying. Its arm exploded and blood spurted from its mouth. Lu Ming's strength had increased greatly since the battle with the foreign tribe's divine ancestor. Now, he had refined the divine artifact and his cultivation had broken through to the two-star Heavenly Emperor realm. The human-shaped bat's cultivation level was only on par with the foreign tribe's divine ancestor. Moreover, when he entered the heaven realm, he was also injured by the heaven-suppressing rune. Naturally, he was no match for Lu Ming. No, this person is too terrifying. I have to find the others first before killing him. The human-shaped bat's body shrank and flapped its wings, trying to escape. However, there was no way Lu Ming would let him escape. His figure moved and his combat sword slashed out violently. Streaks of terrifying sword gleams shrouded the human-shaped bat living creature. Puff! The human-shaped bat was struck by Lu Ming's sword, almost cleaving it in half. It spat out a large mouthful of blood and was sent flying, suffering heavy injuries. "Brat, you dare to kill me? You're just someone from a small kiliacosm and you dare to kill me? I'm from the Yuan Luo Palace. If you kill me, the Yuan Luo Palace will turn you into ashes." The humanoid bat began to roar and threaten Lu Ming. Ridiculous. Lu Ming remained unmoved. This human-shaped bat had slaughtered hundreds of millions of living beings in the heaven realm as soon as it entered. No matter what, he had to kill this person. Lu Ming became one with his sword. He transformed into a terrifying sword light and slashed out. Puff! This time, the human-shaped bat was truly hacked diagonally, cleaved in half. Ah! The human-shaped bat creature roared in alarm, running away with all its might. He never thought that he would be in danger of dying as soon as he entered. Originally, he thought that it was just a small thousand world, and he could come in and indulge himself. He never thought that he would end up like this. Kill! Lu Ming roared and slashed down with his sword once again. This time, the human-shaped bat creature could not avoid the attack. It was cleaved in half by Lu Ming's sword and its soul was destroyed. It died completely. This time, it was much easier for Lu Ming to kill a first-level void god. However, Lu Ming did not dare to be careless. This human-shaped bat creature was obviously the weakest among the empty gods. It was only a level 1 empty god. Moreover, it was injured when it entered, which was why Lu Ming killed it so easily. If it was not injured, it would not have been so easy. What would happen if it encountered a level 2 empty god or even a level 3 empty god? Lu Ming waved his hand and kept the human-shaped bat creature's storage ring. Before he could open it to check, Lu Ming's expression changed again. This was because he realized that there was a powerful being rushing towards the heaven-suppressing seal. Don't even think about it. Lu Ming was enraged. He did not know how many creatures had entered from the outside. The other party was obviously taking the opportunity to attack the heaven-suppressing seal. He wanted to tear it apart. Lu Ming rushed toward the heaven-suppressing rune at lightning speed. However, he was still a step too late. Boom! A burly man with a horn on his head slammed into the heaven-suppressing talisman, causing the hole in the heaven-suppressing talisman to widen. Die! Lu Ming arrived and slashed down with his sword. The man with the horn was shocked. He turned around and punched at Lu Ming. When his fist collided with the sword, the man with the horn was pushed back tens of thousands of miles. The single-horned hunk was also a level 1 empty god. Sovereign Dao. The single-horned man's eyes were filled with shock. Kill! Lu Ming roared. Without saying anything, he charged towards the man with the horn. The man with the horn also unleashed his full strength and charged towards Lu Ming. Rip! At this moment, the space not far away cracked and a black python appeared. It was as big as a mountain and charged towards Lu Ming. It was another level 1 empty god realm expert. Lu Ming narrowed his eyes. His sword vibrated and split into 2 sword radiances, slashing towards the man with the horn and the python. There were 2 terrifying booming sounds and the void collapsed. The single-horned burly man and the python were sent flying by Lu Ming. Lu Ming was invincible as he continued to charge towards his opponent. At the same time, he activated the battle character skill to double his combat strength. Boom! The space collapsed and a burly figure appeared in the space. He held a saber and slashed at Su Mo. The saber radiance was shocking and terrifying. Lu Ming blocked the attack with his combat sword, and there was an explosion of a terrifying roar. The space within a radius of 10 million miles was completely destroyed. The terrifying power landed on the ground and the earth cracked. Gullies that were 10 million miles long appeared. Magma erupted from the depths of the earth and it was a doomsday scene. Heaven and earth were destroyed. Heaven and earth were truly destroyed. The entire Taiching sky domain was shaken. At this moment, those who had some cultivation in the heaven domain could feel that a terrifying battle was about to break out. The pressure of the deities filled the entire heaven domain, and everyone had a feeling that a great disaster was about to befall them. Have the people from outside come in? Xie Nianqing stood in the air at the Dragon Emperor peak with deep worry in his eyes. He then stepped out and headed towards the heaven-suppressing seal. Is it an expert from the primitive universe? Have the experts from the primitive universe come? Lu Ming, Ancestor Dragon, are they fighting with the outsiders? At this moment, everyone was discussing and guessing. There was a fear in everyone's heart. However, they had no choice but to wait. They could not participate in the battle of the deities and could only wait for the result. Let's go and take a look. Some demigods headed towards the heaven-suppressing seal. After all, the battle was the most intense in that direction. They also felt the battle in the south of the Taiching sky domain, but it was not as intense. However, these demigods did not dare to get too close and could only watch from afar. Chapter 2566. Lu Ming. Xie Nianqing appeared tens of millions of miles away from the heaven-suppressing rune, watching the battle from afar. Lu Ming, you have to hold on. In another direction, Dandan's figure also appeared, her face grave. Qing Tsang, Titan Longhorn Beetle, 9 Lives Demon Silkworm, Chaos Emperor, and the others appeared one after another. They looked at the apocalyptic scene in front of them and were deeply shocked. The battle between the deities was too terrifying. They could not interfere at all. If they went over, they would be crushed into powder by the aftermath. Lu Ming, all the demigods muttered as they looked forward. At this moment, Lu Ming was surrounded by 3 figures. One was the horned man and the other was the giant python. They were as big as a mountain and their eyes were cold as they looked at Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming was most concerned about the third figure. It was a bald man. However, his bald head was covered with black runes, which looked extremely strange. He was holding a saber that was bigger than a man. The last attack was made by him. Second level empty god realm. Lu Ming muttered to himself. After blocking the attack, Lu Ming judged that the bald man's strength was far above that of the horned man and the giant python. It was highly likely that he was a second-level empty god realm being. The Sovereign Dao. I didn't expect someone to master the Sovereign Dao in a small thousand world. Master will be very happy to use it to refine medicine. The bald man licked his lips and his eyes were extremely cold. He suddenly stepped forward and slashed the saber that was taller than a man at Lu Ming. Lu Ming also waved his sword and the two clashed again. Clang! A terrifying explosion sounded as the saber radiance and sword chi collided. Lu Ming's body shook and he was forced to retreat. Second level empty god realm is indeed powerful. Ancestor Dragon is right. A thought flashed through Lu Ming's mind. When he was a 1-star heavenly emperor, he could fight against a level 1 empty god. However, now that he had broken through to a 2-star heavenly emperor, he could not fight against a level 2 empty god. That was because the gap between breaking through 1 level in heavenly emperor realm was not as great as breaking through 1 level in void god realm. Unless he had broken through to a 3-star heavenly emperor, he would not be able to fight against a level 2 empty god. Bang! 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 After the bald man repelled Lu Ming, he continued to step forward. His divine power erupted, and his battle saber slashed forward continuously. Lu Ming unleashed his full strength, and his entire body was enveloped by the power of a ruler. His battle sword vibrated, and he slashed out numerous sword lights to resist his opponent. At the same time, Lu Ming kept using the battle formula, trying to trigger the double combat power. This time, Lu Ming was more unlucky. He had already triggered it more than 10 times, but he still hadn't triggered double combat power. Clang! Clang! After exchanging over 10 moves in a row, Lu Ming was pushed back over 100,000 miles, blood flowing out from the corner of his mouth. Heaven-suppressing rune, watch me tear it apart. The bald man laughed heartily, and a shocking saber light was about to slash at the heaven-suppressing rune. Boom! At this critical moment, Lu Ming finally triggered double combat power, and his combat power skyrocketed. Swoosh! Lu Ming turned into a beam of rainbow light, arrived in front of the bald man in an instant, and slashed out with his sword. The power of this sword was much stronger than before. The bald man's face changed, and he raised his saber to block. Dong! The bald man was directly sent flying by Lu Ming's sword. Kill! Lu Ming roared, and he raised his speed to the maximum, rushing forward. However, he didn't kill the bald man, but the single-horned man. What? The single-horned man was shocked. He didn't expect Lu Ming to suddenly explode and send the bald man flying. Initially, he thought that the bald burly man would be able to crush and kill Lu Ming. Instinctively, he raised the weapon in his hand to block, but when his weapon collided with Lu Ming's combat sword, he felt an irresistible force surging toward him. Clang! The weapon in the single-horned man's hand flew out directly, and his arm directly exploded. He screamed, blood spurting from his mouth, and his body flew far away. How could Lu Ming miss this opportunity? Whoosh! Lu Ming rushed out and slashed out a second time. Save! The single-horned man roared in horror, but he only shouted one word before he was split in half by Lu Ming's sword. The single-horned man was dead. Fast, fast to the extreme. From the moment Lu Ming attacked to the moment he killed the single-horned man, it only took a moment. After killing the single-horned man, Lu Ming didn't stop at all, and charged toward the giant python. Retreat! The bald man reacted the fastest. With a roar, he charged toward Lu Ming with his combat sword. Whoosh! Whoosh! The bald man slashed out hundreds of times in a row, and streaks of terrifying Dao light crushed the void and slashed toward Lu Ming. Clang! Lu Ming slashed horizontally, breaking through hundreds of saber gleams. However, in this way, the giant python finally seized the opportunity and retreated rapidly. At the same time, its body shrank and turned into a giant python that was a few meters long. Its eyes were full of fear. This person is strange. Let's work together to deal with him. The bald man roared and charged toward Lu Ming. At the same time, the giant python also attacked. It opened its mouth and spat out a black thin sword that looked like a small snake. It charged toward Lu Ming at a strange and tricky angle, and its speed was astonishing. However, Lu Ming ignored the attack of the giant python and rushed toward it directly. Lu Ming's goal was very simple. He wanted to get rid of the weak first, and then deal with the strong one. Die for me. The giant python's eyes were cold. It retreated and controlled the snake-shaped sword to stab toward Lu Ming. Whoosh! The snake-shaped sword approached Lu Ming's forehead. However, just as it was about to stab Lu Ming's forehead, Lu Ming's eyes were filled with a purple-gold light. Ruler! Lu Ming's mind moved, and the power of a ruler erupted and acted on the snake-shaped sword. Buzz! The snake-shaped sword deviated and flew past Lu Ming's ear. However, Lu Ming's figure didn't stop and continued to charge toward the giant python. Not good. The giant python's expression changed drastically, and it frantically retreated. The bald man roared and chased from behind. Who? At this moment, a terrifying attractive force acted on Lu Ming's body above his head, causing Lu Ming's figure to suddenly stop. Kid, die for me. A loud roar came from the sky, and a huge figure suddenly appeared. This figure was blood-red, with a wide mouth and sharp fangs. It had a pair of blood-red wings, and it was extremely similar to the human-shaped bat that Lu Ming had killed earlier. It was obvious that they were from the same clan. However, this human-shaped bat's cultivation was obviously stronger, and it wasn't any weaker than the bald man's. Its wings were like a storm as they slashed toward Lu Ming. Another second-level empty god realm existence. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed again. How many experts had entered the Yuan Luo Hall? This was what made Lu Ming feel the most uncertain. However, he could only fight now. The battle sword in his hand vibrated, and it shot out rays of sword light to fight against the blood-red bat above his head. At the same time, Lu Ming rushed into the sky and became one with his sword. Chapter 2567. Lu Ming unleashed all of his strength and became one with his sword. He turned into a dazzling sword radiance and charged towards the human-shaped bat. Poof! Blood splattered everywhere. One of the human-shaped bat's wings was almost chopped off. He screamed and retreated quickly. When Lu Ming had not activated the fight mantra to double his combat strength had been weaker than a level 2 empty god. However, after activating the fight mantra, his combat strength had surpassed that of a level 2 empty god. Kill! Lu Ming stared at the human-shaped bat and slashed at it continuously. However, the bald man had arrived and joined forces with the human-shaped bat to fight Lu Ming. As for the giant python, it was hiding in the distance, controlling the snake-shaped thin sword to sneak an attack on Lu Ming. Boom! Boom! The two sides continued to fight, and after dozens of blows, Lu Ming still had the upper hand even though he was fighting against 3 people. Poof! One of the human-shaped bat's wings was completely chopped off by Lu Ming. Blood splattered everywhere and covered the mountain top. Ah, boy, you ant, I'm going to twist your head off, the human-shaped bat roared angrily. However, it was greeted by a sword radiance from Lu Ming. The sword radiance flashed and one of the human-shaped bat's wings was almost chopped off. It was so frightened that it retreated continuously. Clang! Lu Ming turned around and struck the bald burly man with his sword. The bald burly man was sent flying by the impact. Damn it, why is this boy so strong? The bald man's face darkened and he retreated to the giant python's side. The human-shaped bat also hurried to the bald man's side. The 3 of them gathered together and did not dare to separate. What should we do? This boy is too strong. We can't kill him and we can't tear open the heaven suppression charm. The giant python said. Where is Su Tu? Why isn't he here yet? If he is here, he can deal with this boy. The human-shaped bat said. Humph, what a piece of trash. You can't even deal with a native of the small thousand world. Suddenly, a cold and arrogant voice rang out. The void trembled and a figure appeared out of thin air. This figure looked like a human and had a well-proportioned body. However, his eyes were cold and filled with a faint arrogance. Su Tu. The bald man, the human-shaped bat, and the giant python were overjoyed when they saw this person. Su Tu, this person has mastered the Tao of the Sovereign. It's best not to kill him. Capture him alive and present him to the young master. The bald man said. Understood. Su Tu nodded. He looked at Lu Ming and said indifferently, Young lad, surrender yourself. You can save yourself some physical pain. If you want to take me down, let's see if you have the ability. Lu Ming said coldly. The purplish gold glow on his body was getting stronger. However, his heart was very heavy because he could not see through this person called Su Tu at all. Su Tu's cold voice could be heard. He then took a step forward. In an instant, he was near Lu Ming and threw a punch. Boom! This punch contained an astonishing and terrifying power. The terrifying power filled the void and crushed toward Lu Ming like an avalanche. There was no way to dodge. He could only take it head-on. Lu Ming let out a low roar. He gathered all his energy and slashed with his sword with all his might. Boom! Lu Ming felt as if he had slashed an iron wall. Endless power surged and the battle sword shook. It almost flew out of his body. Lu Ming was sent flying by the punch. His body smashed into the ground like a meteor. The ground shook violently, and a huge crater with a circumference of hundreds of thousands of li appeared. Everything was reduced to ashes, and cracks spread out for tens of millions of li. Fortunately, all the living beings within hundreds of millions of miles of the heaven-suppressing rune had been evacuated. Otherwise, who knew how many living beings would have died? Lu Ming, in the distance, Xian Yanqing turned pale with fright. Her eyes were filled with endless worry. Boom! In the next moment, a purplish golden light shot out from the huge pit. It was Lu Ming. At this moment, Lu Ming felt as if his body was about to split apart. Waves of pain shot through his body. Even though he had activated the indestructible ancient scripture, it was useless and his recovery was slow. Such terrifying strength. Lu Ming was shocked. Su Tu was definitely a terrifying existence. His strength was far above level 2 empty god realm. Ancestral Gragon had said that the small thousand world would be dangerous for those above level 4 empty god realm. Therefore, Su Tu might be a level 3 empty god realm existence. Not bad, not bad. You still have the strength to struggle after receiving my attack. Your talent is not bad even in the chaotic universe. Unfortunately, your fate is sealed. Su Tu's eyes became colder and there was even a tinge of jealousy. Boom! A terrifying aura burst out from Su Tu's body. Rumble. Crack, in the sky, a deep rumbling sound rang out. An extremely terrifying scene appeared. With Su Tu as the center, the void exploded unceasingly. Numerous malevolent spatial cracks appeared. It was as if the entire world was about to crumble apart. The space of this small thousand world is really weak. However, it's just enough for me to unleash my strength. Kill. Su Tu's face was ferocious as he charged towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming's pupils contracted rapidly. He was highly focused and his essence, qi, and spirit were at their peak. Swoosh. Lu Ming retreated rapidly. You can't retreat. Su Tu's cold voice resounded. His speed was even faster and more shocking. He quickly approached Lu Ming and threw out a punch. Rumble. The empty space within a radius of a few million miles exploded in an instant, forming a terrifying spatial storm that swept towards Lu Ming. Terrifying. Su Tu's strength was too terrifying. Every move he made had the power to destroy the heavens and earth. If he unleashed his full strength and bombarded the ground, he could definitely destroy the entire Taiching sky domain. No wonder the ancestral Gragon said that if a powerful existence entered a small thousand world, it would collapse. The stability of a small thousand world was incomparable to that of the primitive universe. In the face of Su Tu's attack, Lu Ming could not avoid it. Break, break, break. Lu Ming roared and slashed out with his battle sword. However, Su Tu's strength was too strong. Lu Ming felt his battle sword vibrate violently and his body was sent flying again. He hit the ground and the ground kept cracking. Lu Ming vomited a mouthful of blood. He was seriously injured. He took out a fruit of life and swallowed it. As soon as he swallowed the fruit of life, his injuries healed rapidly. You have this kind of divine medicine, but it's useless. Su Tu stepped forward and threw out a series of punches. Boom! 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 Streams of terrifying fist force crushed out. Lu Ming did not have the ability to resist at all. He was hit continuously and slammed hard onto the ground. This time, Lu Ming's body almost exploded. His body was covered with cracks and he no longer looked human. Even with the fruit of life, it was difficult to recover. Chapter 2568. Lu Ming, in the distance, Xian Yinqing's eyes turned red when she saw this. She clenched her teeth, and a look of determination appeared in her eyes. Her body began to emit a black light. Her hands rapidly formed seals, and her aura began to rapidly rise. Su Tu, the bald man, and the others looked at Xian Yinqing in surprise. Interesting. This small thousand world is really interesting, Su Tu muttered as his eyes burned with excitement. Suddenly, the space beside Xian Yinqing flashed and Xian Yinjuan appeared. Xian Yinqing, what are you doing? Are you out of your mind? Your foundation will be destroyed and you'll be a cripple in the future. Xian Yinjuan scolded. I'm not out of my mind. I have to save Lu Ming. I can't watch him die. Xian Yinqing's eyes were filled with determination. Even if you use that secret technique, you're still no match for them. Also, are you not going to do that thing for Lu Ming? Xian Yinjuan scolded. That's the Tang family's matter. I'm not a member of the Tang family. My surname is Xian Yinqing, Xian Yinqing said. Xian Yinjuan was speechless. Indeed, Xian Yinqing had devoured the memories of her past life. Strictly speaking, she was no longer a member of the Tang family. Xian Yinqing's aura grew stronger as if it was about to reach the martial god realm. This is, Dandan, the Chaos the Arch, the Titan Longhorn Beetle, and the others looked at Xian Yinqing in shock. Am I going to die here today? Underground, Lu Ming lay in a deep pit that was tens of thousands of miles deep. Various thoughts flashed through his mind. Su Tu was too powerful. He was no match for Su Tuesday. He had given it his all and the battle character skill had doubled his combat strength. His combat strength had reached its peak and he was able to suppress a level 2 empty god. However, he was still no match for Su Tuesday. It was completely one-sided. What to do? Lu Ming was unwilling to give up. Once he gave up, the heaven-suppressing rune would be opened and the experts of the Yuan Luo Hall would enter. The living beings of the heaven domain would most likely be doomed. His parents, Xian Yinqing, his son, granddaughter, and friends were all in danger. He had to protect them. Ruler. Ruler. Ruler of the world. If I can control the power of this world, I can deal with Su Tu, that's right. The reason why the heavenly Tao suppressed me was because it was afraid that I would dominate it. Now, I have broken through, thoughts flashed through Lu Ming's mind. Suddenly, Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Since the heavenly Tao was afraid of him breaking through, but now that he had broken through, could he have the power to dominate this world? Immediately, Lu Ming's spiritual sense spread out infinitely. Ruler. Give me control. I am the ruler of this world, Lu Ming roared in his heart as his body emitted a dazzling purple-gold light. Rumble. At this moment, the entire world was shaking. Endless energy suddenly surged towards Lu Ming. At this moment, Lu Ming felt that the entire heaven domain, even the Yuan realm and the evil god world were under his control. He could use the power of the entire world. This is, Su Tu's pupils shrank rapidly as shock filled his eyes. Damn it! Kill! Su Tu roared. He unleashed his full strength and punched continuously, bursting out terrifying attacks. Waves of terrifying fist energy blasted towards Lu Ming. However, a wave of energy formed around Lu Ming's body and blocked all of Su Tu's fist energy. How can this be? Quick, attack together. Attack together and interrupt him. Su Tu could no longer maintain his composure and roared. Attack! The bald burly man and the other two attacked at the same time. all kinds of attacks bombarded Lu Ming. However, they were all blocked by the energy around Lu Ming's body. That is, at this moment, Xian Yinqing, Xian Yinjuan, and the others in the distance were also shocked. Xian Yinqing was about to use some kind of secret technique to advance and retreat with Lu Ming at all costs. At this moment, the secret technique also stopped. Her aura fell again. Is this the power of the entire world? It's too terrifying. At this moment, Lu Ming was in a strange state. He seemed to be able to mobilize the power of the entire world. Then, let's kill. A cold murderous intent burst out from Lu Ming's eyes. The battle sword in his hand suddenly slashed out. This slash mobilized the power of the entire world. Bam! A sword light slashed out, and the attacks of Su Tu and the other three collapsed. The sword light did not stop and slashed towards the four of them. Not good. Su Tu and the other three's faces changed drastically as they frantically retreated. However, the sword light was faster. Poof! Blood splattered everywhere. The bald man, the bat humanoid, and the giant python all came to a sudden stop. Their eyes were filled with disbelief and shock. Following that, their bodies directly exploded, turning into ashes and disappearing. Only Su Tu retreated. He spat out a mouthful of blood and a long sword mark appeared on his chest. He had almost been cut in half. Mobilizing the power of the entire small thousand world. Damn it, D***MN. This is equivalent to the power of a level 4 empty god realm, Su Tu roared in anger and fear. He retreated quickly, tearing the space apart as he tried to escape. Trying to escape? In this world, I am the master. Lu Ming's cold voice sounded. A huge hand suddenly appeared behind Su Tuesday. It was extremely huge and it pressed down on Su Tuesday. Bam! Su Yu was sent flying like an eagle, slamming into the ground. Everything within tens of millions of kilometers around him was destroyed. Su Tu spat out a mouthful of blood and his body almost exploded. The situation at the scene was completely different from what had happened just now. Damn it, D***MN. Su Tu roared in his heart. He glanced at Xian Yinqing and the others and a ferocious look flashed across his eyes. He dashed out towards Xian Yinqing and the others. He wanted to capture Xian Yinqing and threaten Lu Ming. However, the entire world was under Lu Ming's control. How could he let Su Tu do as he wished? Su Tu moved and a spear radiance appeared in front of him. It pierced through Su Tu's body and nailed him to the ground. Su Tu struggled with all his might. However, Lu Ming mobilized the power of heaven and earth to suppress him, making him unable to move. Ah, you are courting death. Do you think you can live after killing me? When the true experts of Yuan Luo Hall take action, your small thousand world will be destroyed. Su Tu roared in anger. F***CKU. Lu Ming arrived above Su Tu and slashed down with his sword. Poof! Su Tu was killed on the spot. Up until now, Lu Ming had killed several gods in front of the heaven-suppressing talisman. Including the first one, he had killed a total of 6 gods. RIP. At this moment, the space not far away cracked and Ancestral Gragon appeared. At this moment, Ancestral Gragon was covered in blood and injuries. Fortunately, he was fine. After an intense battle, Ancestral Gragon successfully killed his opponent. Ancestral Gragon's strength was about the same as his opponent's. However, his opponent was injured and weakened by the heaven-suppressing rune. In the end, he was killed by Ancestral Gragon. Chapter 2569. Senior Ancestral Gragon, please wait for a moment. Let me look around and see if there are any experts from Yuan Luo Hall. Lu Ming said to Ancestral Gragon. After that, Lu Ming closed his eyes. At this moment, Lu Ming dominated this part of the world. Therefore, he could sense any place in the heaven realm, and the evil god realm. He could even sense it in the dark void. There is one more person. In the dark void, Lu Ming sensed a powerful existence. He should be at level 2 empty god realm. He was sitting cross-legged in the void and healing himself. Suddenly, the person opened his eyes and looked shocked. He turned around and ran away. Do you think you can run away? Lu Ming sneered. He gathered the power of the heaven and earth to form a combat sword and slashed down. Ah! The person screamed in pain and was killed. A level 2 empty god realm expert could not withstand one blow from Lu Ming. Lu Ming was too powerful. He could dominate the heaven and earth and gather the power of the heaven and earth. He was comparable to a level 4 empty god realm expert. It was easy for him to kill a level 2 empty god realm expert. Then, Lu Ming continued to search. However, he did not find any traces of other experts. The experts from Yuan Luo Hall who had entered the area had all been killed. At that moment, Lu Ming's aura returned to normal. As for his injuries, he had also completely recovered. Lu Ming, did you gather the power of the heaven and earth just now? Ancestral Gragon looked at Lu Ming in shock. Lu Ming nodded. Then, he waved his hand and the storage rings left behind by the experts were collected by Lu Ming. Lu Ming, are you okay? At that moment, Xian Yanqing flew over with a concerned look. Then, Dandan and the others flew over. I'm fine. Don't worry. Lu Ming smiled. After chatting for a while, the Titan Longhorn Beetle and the others left. Not long after, the news of Lu Ming killing the deities spread. Many people were shocked and they heard about it. Lu Ming had killed the deities by himself. That was a god. It was like a myth. Lu Ming's prestige in the hearts of everyone in the heaven had reached the peak, even surpassing that of the ancestral dragon. In their opinion, Lu Ming was the deity of the deities. However, Lu Ming and Ancestral Gragon. In the area of the heaven-suppressing talisman, Ancestral Dragon and Lu Ming were discussing matters. This can't go on. If the Yuan Luo Palace finds out that they've failed, they'll surely send out even stronger experts. Ancestral Gragon frowned. Senior, what should we do now? Asked Gragon asked. A small kiliacosm is a great fortune for the Yuan Luo Palace. Under normal circumstances, they wouldn't bear to destroy it. However, we can't guarantee that they won't do such a thing in a fit of anger. If they send someone above level 4 empty god realm, they can completely destroy the heaven region, Yuan realm and evil god realm. Ancestral Gragon frowned and pondered. After a while, he said, now, there's only one way to survive. Senior, please tell me. Said Lu Ming. That is to take the initiative to attack. Now, the Yuan Luo Palace doesn't know that the people they sent in have been wiped out. They must be waiting for good news. Therefore, the forces outside the heaven-suppressing rune shouldn't be too strong. Now, if we take the initiative to attack and tear open the heaven-suppressing rune and rush out, we might have a chance to succeed. Said Ancestral Gragon. Rush out. Lu Ming muttered. He pondered for a while and said, all right, let's go. Lu Ming was a decisive person. If they continued to stay here, they could only wait for death. However, if they rushed out, they might have a chance to survive. However, there's an important problem if we rush out. It's the problem of your small kiliacosm. Said Ancestral Gragon. The problem of the small kiliacosm? Lu Ming was confused. If they wanted to rush out, they would have to take most of the living beings into the small kiliacosm and bring them out. The chaotic universe is a truly ancient and perfect world. It's a true great thousand world. A small kiliacosm can't coexist with such a world. Therefore, once you enter the chaotic universe, the small kiliacosm will leave your body within a year and merge with the chaotic universe. It will become a part of the chaotic universe," said Ancestral Gragon. "What? The small kiliacosm will merge with the chaotic universe?" Lu Ming's expression changed. In that case, wouldn't his cultivation drop rapidly? However, there's one thing you don't have to worry about. The chaotic universe is fair. When your small kiliacosm merges with it, it will give you the same amount of energy. Therefore, your strength won't drop. However, the creatures you bring out will all be exposed. This way, our tracks will be exposed. Therefore, once we leave, we must find a safe place to settle everyone down within a year," said Ancestral Gragon. "I see. Only a year?" Lu Ming muttered. In other words, after they got out, they had to get out of danger within a year. Otherwise, it might be even more dangerous. "Lu Ming, you can decide on this matter," said Ancestral Gragon. "Let's do it," Lu Ming said with a determined look. Instead of waiting for death, it was better to fight to the death. Ancestral Gragon's eyes were filled with admiration. There were not many people who could be so decisive. "Alright, since we've decided to rush out, we have to do it as soon as possible. Otherwise, the other party will react and gather more experts," said Ancestral Gragon. Then, the two of them discussed and split up. They wanted to gather most of the living beings in the heaven realm. Fortunately, many of the humans in the heaven realm cultivated the law system and had opened up a small kiliacosm that could hold a large number of living beings. Lu Ming first returned to the Dragon Emperor Peak and told everyone about his plan. Everyone agreed and then spread the news. The entire heaven realm began to move. Most people were willing to fight to the death when they heard about the plan because staying here would only lead to death. Some people in the small kiliacosm took the surrounding people and divine beasts into their small kiliacosm and then rushed to the place where the heaven-suppressing rune was. In just 10 days, almost all the places in the heaven realm were emptied. Many ordinary people were also taken into the small kiliacosm. Then, everyone gathered the heaven-suppressing rune. Then, Lu Ming took everyone into his small kiliacosm. In this way, most of the living beings in the heaven realm were taken into the small kiliacosm by Lu Ming. The heaven realm suddenly became empty. Under the heaven-suppressing rune, only Lu Ming and Ancestral Gragon were left. "Lu Ming, let's begin," said Ancestral Gragon. "Okay." Lu Ming nodded, and the two of them began to tear the heaven-suppressing rune. It was easy to tear the heaven-suppressing rune from the inside of the heaven realm, especially with Lu Ming's power that could dominate this world. Hiss! Not long after, the heaven-suppressing rune was finally torn off by the two of them, revealing a dark passage. Chapter 2570. Lu Ming, it's all up to you. Ancestral Gragon turned into a ray of light and flew into Lu Ming's small world, disappearing. Now, Lu Ming's cultivation was stronger than Ancestral Gragon's, and there were fewer people, so it was easier for them to move around. "Chaos Universe, I'm coming," Lu Ming muttered, then turned back to look at the heaven domain. After they left, Yuan Luo Palace would definitely not destroy the heaven domain, the primordial realm, and the evil god domain. They would definitely let living beings in and turn them into pastures. "One day, I will take back this place," Lu Ming muttered, then stepped into the passage and disappeared. The Chaos Universe was vast and boundless. It was also known as the Divine Domain. This was the final path for all the experts in the small world. After all the living beings in the small world cultivated to the demigod realm, they would leave the small world and enter the Chaos Universe. There were countless experts and deities gathered here. There were countless planets in the Chaos Universe that were suitable for living beings to live in. There were also countless planets, big and small, and countless forces. The chaotic galaxy was a famous chaotic place in the chaos universe. Countless races and evil people gathered there. In this boundless galaxy, there were many planets with life, as well as many forces of different sizes. Yuan Luo Palace was one of the forces. It occupied more than a dozen planets with life and countless experts. Kong Long was the young master of Yuan Luo Palace. He was very talented and had cultivated to the demigod realm at a young age. The Yuan Luo Palace master thought highly of him and specially assigned a planet to Kong Long as his territory. This planet was Planet Dark Underworld. Planet Dark Underworld was extremely huge. Half of it was land, and the other half was ocean. Its territory was not something the Heaven Domain, the Primordial Realm, and the Evil God Domain could compare to. Even if the Heaven Domain, the Primordial Realm, and the Evil God Domain were added together, the area was not even 1/10,000th of Planet Dark Underworld. The Heaven Domain, the Primordial Realm, and the Evil God Domain were all small worlds attached to Planet Dark Underworld, and their passages were connected to Planet Dark Underworld. This was a boundless mountain range. At the peak of a mountain, Kong Long was sitting on a chair. Two young women were massaging his shoulders. "Is there still no news from that small world?" Kong Long asked. He had a bald head, and there were some black runes on his bald head. He looked very similar to one of the burly men who had entered the Heaven Realm. They were from the same clan. "Young master, there's still no news." At the side, an old man bowed and reported. "What a bunch of trash. You've been in there for more than 10 days and there's still no news. You've spent so much time on a small world. I've really raised you in vain." Condor's face darkened. On the side, other than the old man, there were two other large men. However, at this moment, all of them were as silent as cicadas in winter, not daring to utter a word. "Give them another month. If there's still no news after a month, you guys can directly attack and destroy that small kiliacosm. It's just a small kiliacosm, this young master doesn't want it." Kong Long gritted his teeth. "Yes, yes." At the side, the others nodded repeatedly. Suddenly, a voice sounded out from afar. "Young master, there's movement in that lesser thousand world." A skinny young man who was not much older than Kong Long flew over and said. "There's movement. I think Su Tu and the others have settled it. Let's go and take a look." Kong Long took the lead and flew forward. The others followed. In front of them, there was a valley. In the valley, there was a huge black vortex that was constantly rotating. When Kong Long and the others arrived, they heard a constant rumbling sound coming from the black vortex. Not long after, the sound disappeared. "It's coming." Kong Long and the others' eyes moved. They saw a figure appear in the vortex. Then, the silhouette slowly became clearer. "Huh!" Kong Long and the others were stunned. This was because they did not know the figure. It was not one of their men. It was a young man who looked to be in his 20s. He was handsome and tall. This young man was naturally Lu Ming, who had come from the Heaven Realm. "Stop him." Kong Long saw that it was not one of his men and waved his hand. Suddenly, the 5 or 6 large men who were guarding here moved and surrounded Lu Ming. An astonishing aura burst out. "Empty God Realm, they're all in the Empty God Realm. They're all at level 2 and level 3 of the Empty God Realm." Lu Ming's pupils suddenly shrank. This is bad. These people's cultivation levels were too high. Among the 6 large men who surrounded Lu Ming could feel that at least 2 of them were not weaker than Su Tuesday. They were at level 3 of the Empty God Realm. The other 4 were at level 2 of the Empty God Realm. As for the young man not far away, Lu Ming could tell that he was at Demigod Realm. However, the 2 large men and an elder behind the young man were unfathomable. It was impossible to estimate their cultivation levels. Lu Ming's heart sank. This kind of power was not something he could fight against. In the heaven realm, Lu Ming could dominate the primordial realm and evil god realm. He could directly mobilize the energy of the primordial realm and evil god realm. Therefore, he could easily kill a level 3 empty god realm existence. However, after leaving the heaven realm and coming to the chaotic universe, Lu Ming naturally could not mobilize the energy of the primordial realm and evil god realm. Even if Lu Ming activated double combat strength, he would not be a match for a level 3 empty god realm expert. Needless to say, there were stronger existences. However, Lu Ming would not sit still and wait for death. He instinctively released his aura and was cautious. Only at the transformation void martial realm? When they saw Lu Ming's aura, not only was Kong Long stunned, but the others were also stunned. Then, they relaxed and revealed a relaxed expression. He was just at the transformation void martial realm. Any one of them could easily suppress him. What was there to be nervous about? Originally, they thought that Lu Ming was a great expert. Lu Ming saw the expressions of the crowd. Lu Ming's heart jumped and he had a plan. A transformation void martial realm expert. Kid, did you sneak out? Kong Long asked coldly. He thought that Lu Ming must have sneaked out when Su Tu and the others were not prepared. That's right. What do you want? Lu Ming pretended to have a drastic change in expression. He retreated continuously, looking nervous. You really sneaked out. Kong Long sneered and said, let me ask you. How are the people who entered your world? What are they doing? Those despicable guys are slaughtering and killing innocent people. They are simply inhumane. Lu Ming pretended to be infuriated. He was infuriated. Ha ha ha, Kong Long and the others laughed out loud. Forget it. Let them play. Kid, kneel down and surrender. I have something to ask you. Kong Long waved his hand. You want me to surrender? Don't even think about it. I am the top genius of the heaven realm. I see that you are not old. I challenge you now. Do you dare to accept the challenge? Lu Ming shouted. How dare you? What qualifications do you have to challenge the young master? You are just an ant. I will kill you with one palm. A burly man said ferociously. Wait. Kong Long waved his hand and stopped the burly man. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.